Hi, everybody. It's Heidi from Costume Co. Welcome back to another live stream. Today, I have Justin Thomas from the Justin Thomas Show on as a guest, but he was here and then I lost him. So hopefully he'll be popping back into the stream shortly. Um, Sorry, I've changed the time to 4 p.m. today. I hope that doesn't cause too many problems for everybody. So in Canada, it's 4 p.m. where I live. It's a beautiful day here. I hope everyone's having a wonderful weekend and that Justin will pop in shortly. But anyway, I just sort of see who's here. It might be a bit more quiet than usual because normally I do this at 6 p.m. But today, as I mentioned, we had to do a change. So I've got Erin LaFay is here. Hi, Erin. And Herman Bums Mums here. She says, I'm ready. So that's Cindy. So anyway, guys, last week, if you were here, I had Patrick on, and that was kind of crazy. It was my first attempt to try and have a guest on without any prep. So anyway, hopefully whoever was here found that interesting. And then we had Jamie Hughes on, and he was a really great guest. He's a wealth of knowledge about movies, and I always love chatting with him, and he's really funny and charming as well. So what I have coming up is, as I mentioned last week, I'm doing a book on costumes about Game of Thrones. So that's something I'm going to be working on. It's sort of going to be an ongoing process as the summer goes on and into the fall. And then if they do hopefully announce a date for Game of Thrones, the air date for that, it's going to be probably not until 2019 at this point. So hopefully we'll have an air date on that. So at this point, I'm hoping to aim for December or maybe January, depending on when the next season of Game of Thrones comes out in 2019. But in the meantime, I am doing a video. Last weekend, I released a video on Olenna Tyrell, and I had really great response. Thanks for everybody who watched it and commented on it. I had a lot of great feedback. It was a really fun video to do. I just loved I love Olenna Tyrell and Diana Rigg. She's a fantastic actress. I'd actually just read that she is on Broadway doing My Fair Lady, and she's playing Mrs. Fair Lady. She's playing Henry Higgins' mother. So that's very cool. I'm glad she's gone on to another awesome project after Game of Thrones. We'll dearly miss her. So, but what's really exciting, I'm getting near the end. I'm doing a video on Jon Snow and Ned Eddard Stark. So that's going to be really great. I'm really looking forward to doing that. Of course, there's a lot of parallels in their costumes, which is very intentional by the costume designers. So it's going to be kind of a long video. There's a lot going on with it. So that's going to be coming out. I'm hoping that I have that out tomorrow. I'm going to be having a bit of a break from the channel for the next week. So there won't be a live stream next week. So today is going to be it for the next few weeks. So anyway, let's just check who's here. I'm hoping that we get Justin back. I'm not sure what's happened there. Otherwise, it's just going to be me. It's going to be a little bit weird. Let's see who's here. So we've got 4 people watching. So it's kind of quiet, guys, because it is in the middle of the day and it's hard for people to come in here. So while we wait for Justin, maybe what I'm going to do is I had some pictures put together. I don't know if any of you saw my Shogun World video that I did, but I have some pictures of that. So we're going to just sort of go through that. I was going to do it with Justin, so hopefully he's going to be coming back shortly. I'm not sure what happened there. Otherwise, it's going to be kind of a short stream. So let's see what's going on here. So I'm just going to actually go past this for a moment. Okay, so Erin, I don't know if you've watched Westworld at all. I think Cindy has. So in this episode, it's about Shogun World. And so what I did is I did a video about it, about the town and about the costumes and everything. And I really wanted to have Erin here for this. So this is, of course, a picture of all the major characters from the show. So we've got Maeve there, of course, and we've got Felix. Sorry, that's not Felix. It's Sylvester. And we've got Lee Sizemore and then Akana, which is the name of the episode is based off of. So it'd be really great if Erin was here. Okay, so one of the things that I sort of discovered when I was doing my you know, my sort of my research on Westworld on the Shogun World segment is, oh, here's, we got a few new people. Gulf Princess is here. Yay. Yes, you Shogun World was video was great. So, Golf Princess, if you're just joining us, I'm supposed to have a special guest, but he's not here. So I'm just waiting for him to pop in. Justin Thomas is supposed to be here. And what happened was he was in, everything was set up and we were good. And then suddenly it just crashed. I'm not sure what happened. So I'm hoping that he finds his way back here. And then, so yeah. So one of the things I discovered when I was looking into this is on the map of Shogun World, they had the name of a town called Hirafuku, which I thought was probably the name of the town where they visit when they, you know, when they get captured. Maeve and Hector and everyone gets captured. And so Hirafuku is actually the name of an actual town that's in Seo, Hyogo, Japan. Oh, Justin says, I lost power. I'm back on now. Give me 5. So he just needs 5 minutes. So we're just going to chat for a little bit. Okay, guys? And then when Justin comes on, we're going to talk about Westworld as well. And he's going to, you know, we're going to get into some of the big picture stuff. We'll probably get into a little bit of, you know, the more nitty gritty, but we've got some big picture things that I wanted to talk to him about. And then hopefully if you guys have any questions about that, you can ask him and he will answer. And I've got a lot of questions too. So that'll be really cool to have him here. So then what happens is, the other location that we saw on the map of Shogun World was called Jinmaku, and that actually means camp curtain. So what I thought is that this sort of camp that they've set up, that the Shogun has set up, probably is that. So it's like a military encampment. And in ancient Japan, Jinmaku curtains were tied to poles and stretched around field encampments to form a defensive barrier, which are what these things are here. These sort of like structures, these tall poles that have the canvas, and of course it's dyed in the colors of this sort of dark red and white, which is very Japanese, of course, in looking. So next. This is, of course, Akana. She's dancing, but you can see the poles here on the actual, you know, sort of behind her as well. And I threw this picture in here. This picture was actually taken from, you know, if you go to the Delos Destinations website, this is actually one of the pictures that they had on there that they were using, sort of like, it's like a fake type of website to sell you on going to one of the Delos Destinations parks. And so they actually had this picture showing these sort of samurai soldiers as a way to advertise and entice people into the park. And then they had this really, you know, kind of crazy description that says that it offers an immersion experience, stating that the spirit of feudal Japan has been infused into every detail, meticulously designed to give you the experience of a lifetime. So now one of the things I wanted to talk to Justin about, we're going to, when he comes in, we can chat about this. So there's this sort of like parallel between Sweetwater and the town I just mentioned here, Fuku. In that, you know, you've got sort of like, it's basically Lee ran out of ideas. So he's just sort of like done a photocopy, like a carbon copy, sorry, of the town of Sweetwater. But instead of having, you know, Western characters, he's got Japanese characters. So what he's done is like, so for instance, with Maeve, Akana is sort of her equal. Now she's not per se, she is actually a geisha who runs a tea house. So technically speaking, she wouldn't be a prostitute in the same way that Maeve would be. So, you know, but, you know, a geisha is probably the closest thing they've come up with compared to having a madam of a brothel. So, but what they do is they sort of mirror them in their colors. As you can see here, I mean, you know, Clementine's outfit's a little bit more hot than this one is, this red. But I'd mentioned before that Akana is actually also a color. So while it is a popular Japanese name, it's also like sort of like a deep red color that comes from a root. And you have to like dye the fabric multiple times to get that sort of color. Sorry, Cindy. Yeah, so I'm on my own here, so I'm just rambling on. Thank you for saying that. So, and then of course, then we have the equivalent to armistice, which is Henario. And you know, she would be I think I mentioned this, that she's what we would call it on a geisha, which would be like a female geisha, sorry, a female warrior that would dress in men's clothing and would be kind of like a samurai, a female samurai. She'd usually be nobility, like, or a higher class, as opposed to a ninja or something like that. That would be like more like a mercenary, or you know, a hired gun. So she would come from a higher class. So and I think what they've done with the costumes is they have tried to mirror the colors. They, you know, Armistice is wearing a straw hat, and of course we did see Henario wearing, I think I've got a picture of it here, wearing a bit of a straw hat. We'll see it in a moment. And then we've got Clementine Pennyfeather, who is the equivalent to Sakura. So, you know, not exactly the same colors, but you've got Clementine in sort of this blue-green color, and then you've got Sakura, who is in sort of this soft green color. And I don't know if anybody saw Heroes, but the actress who plays Sakura, she's a Japanese actress. She was in Heroes, and actually I loved her. She was supposed to be sort of a Japanese manga kind of character, you know, like that type of thing, you know, superhero type character. And she's sort of like in a virtual reality. So I'm not sure if there's any Heroes fans out there. That was like the season 3, I think, of Heroes she was in. So when I saw her, I didn't recognize her, of course, because she's in full makeup. So that was sort of a nice surprise. Oh, and Core Angers is asking, who is Justin Thomas? Well, Justin Thomas is going to be here shortly. He has his own channel called The Justin Thomas Show. And he does analysis, like I do analysis of costumes. Like, so I do analysis of film and TV from a costume perspective, while Justin does analysis of like Westworld and Game of Thrones more from a literary, philosophical, and, you know, that type of level type of thinking than I do. Mine isn't as deep as his, I'd say. Although I do try to find some things on symbolism. And then, oh, who does this say? Okay, what are you guys saying here? Herman says, I learned so much from your Shogun video. You do such excellent work, Heidi. Aw. And then Golf Princess says, I did too, Herman Bum's mom. Heidi really puts a lot of good research into her videos. Aw, thanks so much, you guys. And I love that she has the spirit and the love of not only costumes, but also how she looks into cultures. Oh, yeah. I love cultures, guys. That's one of the things I have to say. That's probably one of my favorite aspects of doing these videos. I love exploring other worlds where people live. That's one of the best parts of Game of Thrones, I think, actually, is that there's so many different worlds that they have tapped into. There's Persian, and there's British, and there's First Nations, and there's Inuit, and there's like, you know, Northern Baltic and African, and there's all kinds of things. So that's really, really fun for me. And I'm always enjoying it. And then, you know, I get to learn something alongside with you guys as well. So, and Erin says, yes, she really does. And I love that she has this. Oh, that was Erin said that. Sorry. So, Erin, I feel a bit lost here. Sorry. Erin, I had a question for you. So, Erin, who is my moderator, and he also happens to be a really talented designer and artist. He was on our show about, I guess it was like 3 weeks ago, maybe, Erin, with Tatiana Melendez. Anyway, so Aaron had messaged me that he's thinking of making a costume from Beauty and the Beast, Belle's costume. And I think it's the ball gown, Aaron. So are you planning on doing the one from the movie, or are you thinking of doing the one for Tatiana? Because you had asked me about fabric ideas about that, and Tatiana had made some suggestions, but I wanted to just clarify that with you because I hadn't actually talked to you. So when you get that answer, you can tell me. So then in the meantime, I'll just go back to this. I'm going to go back to talking about Clementine. Okay, so there's Sakura there. Oh, by the way, so this is something I found really fascinating.
Hello.
Oh, Justin's here. Hi,
my power
Justin.
just went out.
That is so Carolina. Weird.
We're having a storm, so I am now
oh my sweaty. Gosh.
I've destructed half of my little set here. I have apologize. Go ahead and let me catch up here. I'm gonna mute myself.
No, it's fine. I was just I was laughing because I was like, okay, I'm on my own here. I don't know what to talk about. Lost for Words says, Heidi, your videos are layered, factual, and often historical. Oh, that's so nice. I'm getting some nice comments here from everybody. I think they feel sorry for me because I was by myself. Oh, Erin says, I am thinking of both her village costume and her ball gown. Okay, so Erin, I was just explaining to everybody, he is a costume designer. He creates many of his own costumes, and then he sends me pictures of them, and I had him on the show a couple of weeks ago. So he's thinking of reproducing 2 costumes from Beauty and the Beast. Have you seen the new Beauty and the Beast? Justin, have you seen it? Are you into any of that type of stuff?
No, I did not see it. I heard it was good. My niece saw it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I watched it with my kids. Like, it was pretty good. I preferred the animated version better, though. So Justin, while he's getting set up, Aaron says he's going to do a male version, though, like a gender bender version, which is awesome. That's really cool. So Aaron, if you want, I can talk to you. Tatiana sent me a bunch of fabric design ideas for you. I didn't know if you were planning on doing her version of it, so she was just asking about that. I thought you were. So if you're planning on doing the one from the movie, just let me know, and then we can kind of come up with some ideas. But my initial thoughts, I don't know if anyone in the chat has seen Beauty and the Beast, the live action version with Emma Thompson. It looks like organza, probably. Organza, maybe silk. It's probably multiple layers, I would think, Aaron. You're going to probably have to test it out and get some maybe swatches and look at it, what it looks like under light. Oh, so Gulf Princess says, yes, major storms in North Carolina. I'm in Asheville this weekend, and we got rained off the course after 9 holes. Life is hard. Laugh out loud. Gulf Princess, in case any of you don't know, she's a huge golfer. That's her name, Gulf Princess.
All right, awesome. I'm sweaty and disoriented, but I should be ready to go.
No.
I apologize to everybody.
I asked you what the weather was. I didn't know it was. You were having a storm. You didn't mention.
It's still sunny outside, but the thunder's been rumbling, and it went.
Okay. So anyway, everyone, welcome. We've got Justin Thomas from the Justin Thomas Show. Someone was just asking who you are, and I tried to do probably a terrible explanation of who you are. Justin, you want to tell everyone who you are?
Yeah, my name is Justin Thomas. My channel's name is The Justin Thomas Show because I'm very creative. And I do recaps, reviews, breakdowns of mostly television shows like Game of Thrones, Peaky Blinders, Westworld, Black Sails I did when it was still on, ITV's Victoria, as well as now I have a new project I started called The Evolution. Sorry, again, my collar is all ruffled here. The Evolution of the Trailer, in which I take a look at how not only trailers have evolved over time, but specific trailers that have evolved over time. The first episode will be this week. I will be doing A Star is Born. That is the new Bradley Cooper and actually Lady Gaga movie that's coming out. It might seem like a weird choice, but this movie has been adapted. Number one, it's going to be released during the Oscar season, and Bradley Cooper is incredibly talented, as is Lady Gaga. But the most important thing for the trailer breakdown is this is the 4th adaptation of this film. It started in 1937. Judy Garland's been in this, Barbara Streisand, Chris Christopherson. So I'm going to take a look at all 4 of the trailers and show how essentially the same framework of the story has been portrayed in trailers throughout over 70 years now. But I'm also going to take a look at individual trailers such as Alfred Hitchcock's work and Orson Welles and stuff like that, and just break down what trailers were, the history of them, and how we've kind of went from one method to another and loop back again. And trailers are very enticing to me. I mean, YouTube especially is a platform where trailers are almost bigger than the actual movies. I mean, we have people reacting to trailers, breaking down trailers. They are marketing, yes, but they are a very vital and creative source of marketing. But yeah, subscribe to my channel if you have not. I'm usually not out of breath and running around, but if you lose me again, give it up to the gods.
Yeah, and I put your links in the description. So I've got Justin's channel link in the description. I've got you on your Twitter link. Now, Justin, you had messaged me earlier about this cause, which I have put a link in the description. You want to talk just a little bit about it? Yeah,
again, I'm a little out of sorts here, but this is not a situation in which I'm personally familiar with. I do know that a lot of good content creators have recently had a series of streams that are happening as we speak right now that are all raising funds for a family that unfortunately lost a father. And this gentleman was a big supporter of the fandom in the community as far as Smokescreen's channels, History of Westeros, Because Geek, all the channels that I'm assuming a lot of people here are familiar with, and they're all raising money. They have already raised quite a bit of money, and they are going to continue to do so to help out this family. This was unexpected and unfortunate. I'm not personally attached to this, but I am personally attached to the community. So I just wanted to make sure we put the link in there, and you can go check out Smokescreen and History of Westeros and Because Geek for their streams that'll be going on throughout tonight. And if you want more details and content that is specifically oriented towards that cause. But I just thought it was important that we, as part of the community, included it. So thank you, Heidi.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So I've put that in the description below. And so, yeah, so the essence of what had happened was this person is not a creator, but he is a member of the community. Like, I think this is one thing that's really important to remember about the YouTube community is that we're not just creators, but we're the people who support, like people who support us on Patreon, people who watch and support the channel, and they share our videos out, and they come into the streams, and they're just really vital to the whole community. And what's really lovely, and I love about it, is that, you know, I've met viewers from your channel, I've met viewers from Robert's channel and Deep Geek, you know, Citadel Secrets, you know, all these other fabulous Game of Thrones creators. We're kind of a tight-knit community in a lot of ways. And so it's really important to, when something tragic happens, it's really great if we can all band together and help out one another. So I've put that in the description below, but as Justin says, you can also go check out Smokescreen, and they're going to be doing some awareness of this to help this family out. So, and then maybe we'll remind you in the middle of the stream as well. So, and then Justin, I was just saying before you got here that I've got a Ned Stark / Jon Snow video coming out tomorrow. So I'm really excited about that. So that's gonna be really fun, looking at their costumes and how they parallel. They've come to kind of parallel one another, which is done by intention. Like it's done by design. So it's just gonna show.
Yeah, Ned wears a lot of hats, doesn't he? Doesn't Ned love hats for his nice head? It's a bad joke. No, yeah, the mirroring of Ned Stark.
I kind of drew a blank. I was like, what?
Yeah. No, that's my poor sense of humor. But no, yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
One of the things I was noticing is that Ned Stark, he was only on for 9 episodes, and yet, you know, like Sean Bean, and yet like he's really endured. He's constantly being referred to throughout the show. I mean, you know, he could possibly get residuals just for that. I don't know. And so now, like, coming to the point of where we closed off season 7, I mean, really, John has embodied his father, which, you know, isn't really his father. Oh, spoilers, sorry. Oh, I just fucked up there. Sorry, guys. if you're not up to speed with Game of Thrones. So he's sort of come to embody his dad, you know, in the look of his clothes. And so it's really crazy. So as I'm going along, I'm like, oh my God, it's coming closer and closer to this. But then Michelle Clapton did say it in an interview. She did it on purpose. So that's going to be fun. And then Justin, I don't know if I told you I'm working on a book about Game of Thrones.
Are you going to finish the Winds of Winter? That's what somebody should do.
No, I don't have that skill set. No, I'm working on a costume book about Game of Thrones. So Patrick, who's my friend, he's doing the illustrations. I've gotten some permission from some of the people who created jewelry pieces and so on, and fabrics and that. I've gotten some permission from them as well to use images from them. And yeah, I'm doing it's going to be kind of like an A to Z breakdown of the costumes of Game of Thrones. So I'm hoping to have it out by the end of the year. Or beginning.
Oh, that's awesome. Oh, yeah, that's really awesome. I love how diverse I mean, I'm obviously in no ways an expert in costumes, but you know, just with the armor being so diverse, by embracing, you know, the Japanese style of armor along with the feudal knights, it's amazing. So yeah, I love your Game of Thrones. I love all your content, but the Game of Thrones stuff, it's so enticing.
Well, it was so funny because when I was doing the Westworld video, or sorry, the Shogun video, I kept going, oh my God, this is Game of Thrones. Oh my God, this is Game of Thrones, you know, because I kept going, oh my God, that skirt is just like something that Ned would have worn, you know? Oh my, you know, and it was just sort of funny because there is a little bit, you know, mostly with the Lannisters, we see the Japanese influence, but you do see it as well in the Starks and some of the other, you know, the northern Westerosi type armor. But, you know, it's funny because when I was in theater school, I was never really that much into armor. And then I got a job, working at a costume company. And I sort of became like the military person. I became like the military expert at the company. And so anytime there was like some kind of military type job, do research, it would always sort of land on me. And so I started really getting fascinated with arms and armor. And we worked with we did have some metal, but most of it would have been like vacuum form. It would have been molded plastic, that type of thing. And so, you know, or fiberglass, like it would have been like more lighter weight materials. And then I started learning about weapons and different types of swords and stuff. So it sort of felt like natural for me. There's a great channel called something Scully Erastica. I don't know if you've ever seen it, where he talks about weapons. He's like
is it? Yes, he has
Gladiatoria?
a cleanly shaved head.
Yes, he's British, right? Scholar Gladiatoria or something. Anyways, it's a really great channel. And if any of you guys are interested in arms and armor, and then he'll do something like he'll take Vikings and he'll talk about it, or he'll talk about Game of Thrones.
He does good breakdowns of the fights as well.
He does.
Because he's a HEMA expert, HEMA, whatever you want to recall it. Something that I would like to waste money on and eventually will, which is, you know, the art of European Western sword fighting. At least it's they got a few places here in Raleigh. It's pretty interesting. Yeah, I watch him, Shadversity, and a few other channels.
Yeah, Shadversity is another one. Yeah, so it's I just find it really, really fascinating. And actually, you know, so sometimes when I'm looking up something, I'm like, oh, I don't know how you say this or how it's worn or how that's used. I'll do that. I'll kind of go off and look at that, because it's really kind of its own thing in a way. But that's one of my favorite things I've sort of gotten into, like as much as like I like pretty dresses and the things that the women wear. I really am fascinated. And so Game of Thrones has their own armor person. Like, so he works under the costume designer, but he's basically the head of arms and armor. Sorry, no, he's the head of armor. And then they have another fellow who's in charge of weapons. So, you know, they've each got their own wardrobe head. And these people are super mad skilled individuals. Like, I just can't even, you know, I appreciate them so deeply, the type of crafts work that they do, the kind of craftsmanship that we see. Because in Game of Thrones, I mean, they do occasionally, and one of the things that they had said was that, you know, you have to remember that even if the person's in the background, you never know what's going to happen. So you kind of have to still make it look real, because that person could easily be moved forward, you know, at one point and be standing next to Jon Snow. So you have to make sure that they're not just the principal actors have this really great looking armor, but that the background people do too. So they're just, you know, doing massive amounts of armor. And last year we saw an enormous amount. I think that was the season we saw the most armor in Game of Thrones, especially with the Lannisters. I'd never seen that much Lannister armor before. So that you can never break immersion like that. And I think that's first off something that's going to be very enjoyable. And me and Robert, actually, on my channel, 5 o'clock on Tuesday, I've got to set the link tonight. We'll be doing a Game of Thrones live stream at 5 p.m. Eastern, and we will be discussing the difference between Northern Lords and Southern Knights, and kind of how the power structure is set up, and the difference between the warrior classes, specifically North and South in Westeros. So when are you doing that?
Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern. The link will be set tonight.
I'm not going to be here. Darn it! I'll watch the recap when I get back.
Well, watch it, record yourself watching it, and then send me that proof, and then I will, you know, I'll be happy. So just, you know,
it's so hard on me.
Hey, you know, I show up late to a stream, and you know, I'm half in, half out. But I mean, I hold others to standards that I do not abide by, and I stick by that.
Okay, so all right, so Justin, I know this is terrible. I know you've been talking. Like, how long have you been talking about Westworld? Like, seriously, like how long?
Well, I started running the official Amino the first week of the season. I started my channel a good few, maybe 6 months after. My channel's about a year old, but for a long time. But I heavily embrace my Westworldness. I have been in a particular situation that I put myself in, where I've been heavily invested in the show, so I've been harder on it, and I'm a little burnt out on Westworld, but I'm happy to fulfill my Westworld duties, because nonetheless, it is a thought-provoking and interesting series, to say the least, whether I'm happy with it as of this moment or not. So what do you need?
Yeah. Okay. So, well, anyway, I was going to say, if anybody has anything they want to ask in the chat, like Justin's here to be our humble servant. We were planning on having you a couple of weeks ago, and that was totally my fault. I had a problem with the computer. Basically, we have a Hackintosh, and I didn't know Jack was away. Whenever Jack is away, Jack's my husband. Everyone knows he's like my go-to person. So sometimes when he's not here, everything goes awry. So that's what happened there.
Where was Jack for me 10 minutes ago when the power went out? Where's my Jack?
You know what? You know what he's doing? You're gonna laugh at this. He's getting the snow tires removed from our car.
It's summer. It's a little late, right? You should just keep them on at this point.
Well, it's, okay, but you have to realize you can't take off your snow tires until June in Canada. So we are a little late. We are a little late, but no, you wait until June. I know it sounds crazy, but you have to wait until at least June to take off your snow tires, and then you put them on back on somewhere around November, December kind of thing. So it's a very short season. But I wanted to take them off because otherwise they get worn out, So we have to, you got to take them off for at least 4 months or something, just so that you say you do. But anyway, so that's what he's doing. It's really exciting.
This is us, Snow Tire Street, everybody.
Yeah, I know. Well, you should have seen me rambling on earlier. I was just rambling on or whatever. So, okay. So one of the things that you and I talked about earlier is the comparison between, and I know you did a video on it, comparison between seasons 1 and 2. And then you were saying how the writers handled season 1 versus how they've, kind of very subtle and with a light touch, versus season 2 was more like a hammer. Is that a terrible comparison, or what do you have to say about that?
It's appropriate in my opinion. Okay. I feel that season 1, and again, I am very proud of what we did with the after show and all that, and I have to adjust my expectations, accordingly, because I'm far more invested by my own choosing into this show, so I'm going to be pretty hard on it. But I do feel like season 1, the video I did was how specifically they handled the way that humanity, humans were portrayed. And season 2 took what I feel is an odd and heavy-handed and choice and approach to the way in which they framed human characters, the very few that we have. Just as I see it, it's a lack of faith in the audience. Season 1, they posed the question of, can robots obtain sentience, which is a subjective term and just idea in general. Yeah. We can't prove it. We can't prove we're conscious. We can't prove we have free will. But nonetheless, by questioning whether the AI, the validity of their free will, consciousness, sentience, predestination, and so forth, you essentially are looking in the mirror, because to do that, you have to look at your own qualities. So it was a very clever way to handle what I'd refer to, walking a tightrope, especially with a fan base that is probably pretty mixed as far as like secular viewers and very religious viewers, who view the idea of human consciousness in very vastly different ways. So I felt like, wow, like they handled topics like, consciousness, free will, predestination, original sin, in such a, great way that was so effective to really justify the nonlinear storytelling, because it makes you question the show more and rewatch more. But really, unknowingly, even in my case, start to even look at yourself in the mirror, and what does it mean to treat these, the proper vernacular, of course, in Westworld is hosts, in the manner in which you do. What does it mean for us to have to hold them to this, standard that we hold ourselves to, that arguably we don't even achieve, we don't check all the boxes ourselves, arguably. Again, it's all subjective. But then with the approach of the human characters in season 2, it was all just very one-dimensional. The whole take on evolution, we can't change. They kind of frame humanity as our cornerstone being survival, which, yes, is true. In order to survive, a lot of times people will do things that are, goes against their morals and their values. Like an animal rights activist may kill an animal in order to survive. because, you know, formalities like compassion and all that kind of go out the window when your life's on the line. But the other half of that equation is many times people do sacrifice themselves in order to hold themselves to their values and adhere to their values, you know. So they kind of take a very heavy-handed approach to just not mirroring humanity through the you know, reversal of the evil robot trope, but just hammering down that we're hopeless, we're bad. QA was very incompetent. You know, I don't, for an argument to be persuasive and for it to be compelling, it should have two strong sides. I mean, the show is always speaking of what? A worthy adversary, correct?
Yeah.
Where's our worthy adversary? The humans, you know, they make these bland statements. AI Logan is like, when the question is posed, humans can't change. He goes, oh, the best they can do is adhere to their, stick to their code. It's like, what does that even mean? You know, I mean, the finale really hammered down these odd stances that they decided to take. And I just couldn't really make sense of it. And I can't get behind the idea. I see other content creators saying, oh, isn't it awesome? And it's so interesting how simple we are. And yes, in many ways we are very simple and primal, but that's only one half of the equation. And I don't get being excited about that. This show should be thought provoking. So why are they hammering down like pretty, you know, abstract ways of looking at evolution, especially something that I think across the board is pretty accepted, that evolution is kind of like the rocket fuel is adapting, meaning change. So to say we don't change is kind of odd. It's like, wow, weird stance to take when you handled sentience and free will and predestination and, you know, religion so well in season 1. And then season 2, they're just like, screw it, let's take some odd stances and be very heavy-handed. I don't know. Yeah,
so. Well, and I mean, and then with the exception of, I mean, and of course we don't even really know necessarily who is, like, we don't even know if Stubbs is human at this point. Like,
no, that was the last. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Lisa Joy in an interview did clarify that he is a host, which really tipped me over the edge, because I was like, wow, that was a good chance to show just a human, just a guy, just a not even maybe a good guy, maybe a guy like a Kingsguard that adheres to a code. The handshake deal, he's gonna stick to it. Nope, he's a host, because wanna know why? Because he did something that wasn't evil or stupid.
Yeah, I know. It's almost like my husband and I were saying, it's some of the, you know, the characters were a little bit cartoonish. Like that's what I felt about Charlotte, for instance. Like before she is, you know, I told you I call her Foloris. Before she becomes that, I was just like, oh my gosh, like, I was expecting her to just be like, start cackling or something. She just didn't feel like, and I didn't know what her motivation was. Like we were saying, like Darth Vader, for instance, I know this is, you know, an extreme example, but Darth Vader, you know why he's bad. You know, it's clear, and you know who the good guy is. That's very clear as well. And I mean, I'm not saying there can't be shades of gray. There can't be nuanced characters like Breaking Bad, for instance. I think they did a really great job of showing a very nuanced character who isn't necessarily a bad guy or a good guy. He's a protagonist. But in this case, I mean, I'm thinking, I mean, Bernard at this point looks like he, you know, but again, he's a host, is he the protagonist? You know, at first we thought it was Dolores, but now it doesn't look like she's the protagonist. And Robert at Indie Geek said, well, I think it's up to you. And I'm like, but isn't it really up to the writers to tell us who that person is? What do you think about that?
And we do have some, Golf Princess CL says, Justin, I think the whole humans are beyond redemption as part of season 3 hosts learning that humans are redeemable. Now, that is something that possible. A lot of people are really hinging their hopes on, and something I am again, first off, I have a lot invested in this show. I've spent a lot of time dissecting the different philosophical views that this show is conveying, the bioethics, everything, you know, stuff that you know has been some pretty heavy reading. So I'm able to, maybe not doing the best job right now, but intelligently speak about this topic. And I really want it to do well, but I think that would be the right way to go. But what really worries me is they said that each season they see as a separate movie. They just, again, made this comment. So that season 3 will be almost like a separate film itself. So that means to me that they feel like they tied up all of the loose ends, right? So yeah, I agree with you, because like in game, I don't like to even make this comparison, but it is relevant. Game of Thrones, you have like the subversion of a lot of tropes, but in order to subvert expectations, you must set expectations. Like Honor gets everybody killed in the first few seasons.
Yeah.
Now we see Jon embracing Honor and it isn't getting him killed the same way that, you know, like, so you see, like, so I think what golf
or
diplomacy
like
is alluding to is a similar thing. Like, they're setting this expectation and they're going to subvert it. Yes, perfectly thought, perfectly put. But
let's burn it all down versus let's burn it all down. Let's burn it to the ground the old way versus let's, you know, negotiate and talk about it. I mean, this of course it's got modern day relevance of how things are working, right?
Yeah, you know, I mean, like, so Golf Princess here is absolutely correct, and that's my way of thinking as well. But it worries me that they made these statements saying that this was like, you should look at the season as a individual film.
Yeah,
that implies they feel they've tied up loose ends. Speaking to what Robert said, Robert has one of the best minds for storytelling on this platform out of anybody that I've ever even met in my life. And I went to theater school, writing school as well. He is a genius. I truly say that. But I do disagree with him on that in particular. He is very optimistic about this. And this goes with this kind of like quasi idea of that, everybody, and this isn't Robert's words, but a lot of people in my comments will be like, well, everybody's an unreliable narrator. And it's like, well, you need a baseline. Still, they do flip the antagonist protagonist in season 1, especially because the protagonist will usually move your narrative forward. They set your pace. Anthony Hopkins was viewed, because of the nonlinear storytelling and his true intent being cloaked until the end, as an antagonist, and he was actually the one that was essentially moving your narrative forward. So it's unorthodox, but in the end, you do understand that, especially after the Kiksuya episode, that it is, you know, his intentions are pure. He is our protagonist, and there can be multiple protagonists. There doesn't need to be a hero. I'm very familiar with different ways of utilizing narrative tools and utilizing protagonists, antagonists, foils, and all above. And I'm open to ideas, but there's this whole stance on Westworld, and I'll stop ranting in a minute, that it's either people are making it so it's completely stupid, which I have made comments that border that, and I don't believe that, and I shouldn't have said it, or it's so smart in people that are, you know, very rightfully so, holding it to a high standard and you know, being critical with it, just don't understand. Oh, you just don't understand it, you know. So there's this like, there's no in between ground here. There's these like pseudo intellectuals that are like, you're not getting. It's like, listen, it's a pretty simple premise. They were pretty fast and loose with the narrative this season. Let's see where it goes. It's not so smart that you need it explained to you, and it's not so stupid that it's irredeemable, is the way I'll put it.
Yeah, like Denis Villeneuve, who is one of my favorite directors. You know, you'll watch a work of his, and it asks you lots of questions, and he may not give you all the answers. Like, he does a really good job of that, and yet, like, I don't feel that I need to have him explaining everything that is going on. Whereas, like, I thought it was really strange that after the final season aired, that final episode, I should say, that the showrunners went on a series of interviews where they had to then explain what they wrote. Like, should you have to really explain what you've written? Shouldn't the audience be able to understand it without you having to do exposition and interviews and say, oh, this is in the future, you know, this part here with the man in black or what have you. That kind of irked me.
It worries me. And there's breadcrumbs of Dan and Dave there with a very, and again, now I'm borderlining on saying it's really bad, which is not. I just hold what I love to a high standard. There is no benefit in being just oblivious to any mistakes in something you enjoy. I call it hardwicking. It has even more of a negative connotation after his recent activities. But hardwicking is just, you know, how he was with The Walking Dead. Oh, that was so awesome. It's like, no, that was really stupid and bad. That truly was bad storytelling. The show is bad now. It was good. It isn't anymore. Stop hardwicking it. There's no advantage to that, because Westworld, what it does best is it opens up a dialogue amongst us, the fandom, and that's what.
I think what happens maybe there is that people have a personal investment, and then when maybe you know, like someone like us, someone who does analysis, then criticizes it, they feel a personal affront to it. Like, I had a situation last year. I was really pissed off. Like, I normally don't get into too much of the fray, but there was one of the directors on Game of Thrones who came down on the fandom over criticism about Cersei's hair. for instance. And I was one of the people who criticized her hair. And a lot of people did. And it wasn't even just like the decision to go with the short hair, which just did it look like shit. And he basically went after the fandom about it. And I'm like, how dare you? You put your product out there, and now we are looking at it and have come up with what we think about it. And now you're doubling down on it. Like, why don't you just be like, okay, that's how you feel, whatever. I put out there my art. And now it's like if you put out a book and then you have people criticize your book and then you come back with an explanation to them about it. Like, I think once your artwork is out there, that's it.
Yeah, and it's to be interpreted in Westworld especially. And that's why Westworld is, see, I've mentioned this before. I don't give a crap. I will make sure not to swear because it's not my channel. About
I don't care. About
when Bernard changes his clothes. I have made a whole video about how the guns work, want to know how they work. In a way, the script made it to work. And the simulation, I've explained how they proposed that this works. But did I lose you? Are we still live, everybody? I don't see costume. We might have lost costume. But I'll keep going just in case we are. Okay, you're back.
Did I go? Is that what
you
happened?
went this time?
Oh my God. Sorry, guys.
No, you're fine. It was only for...
Wow, that was weird. Only for and we don't even have a story. Oh, am I gone again?
No, you're here.
Oh, okay. Oh, by the way, and I wanted to say, I saw Aaron LaFay said that he lost his power because he's in South Carolina, I think. And you're in South Carolina or North Carolina?
North Carolina, where the power at its best is the power pretty much like of a third world country.
He's in... Anyway,
I think he's
Aaron,
in Asheville, but...
okay, Aaron, I hope you're okay. We hope you're okay. Anyway, so you were saying about Bernard's clothes.
Like, okay, so simunition, the guns and all that, they're fast and loose with physics. Essentially, if you really want to break it down, it doesn't make sense. But if you go to the puppet show and you point out all the strings, you're just being a dick. Okay, there's no point in that. But to shut down people when they are, opening up a dialogue about the ways in which they approach, especially pretty substantial topics such as humanity and such as the human condition, that first off, that's what the show is trying to do. And you don't have to agree in the way they portrayed it. I guess essentially they're still accomplishing the larger goal. It's so ambitious. That's why it gets away with more. But, there's this whole idea of you're putting yourself in a bad spot when it's always, well, they're just really smart and they're tricking us and they're trying to misdirect us, which they do with their narrative, all the time. But with these interviews, which they have been inconsistent with, which I don't agree with either. You shouldn't lie blatantly to the fandom because it makes a lot of what you say after that just meaningless. Yeah. But you're taking this harsh stance of it's more risky than just opening up and admitting that you didn't like an aspect, because you're taking a stance of either it's the smartest thing ever made or it's crap. That's not how things are. There's a middle ground, and they could have been portrayed better, in my opinion. I would like to discuss that with somebody in an intelligent way. I don't want to hear, well, you just don't get it, or this or that. It's like, okay. I've
read the comments though in your videos. A lot of them have been really good.
Yeah, a lot of people telling me to F off and get AIDS, and
I had a what? Seriously?
Oh, yeah, God. He was.
I'm sorry.
He made an account just for me. I felt special, but no, yeah, I like the conversation that started about evolution. There's people that have, more science-based backgrounds, which that's my weakest point. I'm not an evolutionary biologist by any means. So yeah. Please have the floor, sir. You can come on, just don't say you just don't get it. You have to realize there's unreliable narrators. I'm like, oh, really? I'm like, what's an unreliable narrator? Tell me more. You know what I mean? It's like, I get it. I get it.
Well, one of the things we had talked about earlier, and I was saying, guys, that Jack, my husband, came up with this, and I think because it was funny because I was going on for like a week about Westworld after the finale aired. And, I really was just trying to wrap my own head around it. I was having a really hard time with it. And so he said, the fact that they've come up with such a high concept show, which is like, kudos to them, really, because a lot of this stuff is really low hanging fruit. A lot of the stuff we see on TV or Netflix or movies. So the fact that they have come up with a huge high concept show and sold it to a network like HBO, and that they've been willing to take, the chance with them on it. So So it's going to have its foibles. It's going to have its issues, of course. So, but the fact that they, you know, that we are talking about it, that says something too, right? That says that they've tapped into something.
Says it all. That's what makes me invest so much time when I could admittedly be far more capable of pumping out content that was purely Game of Thrones. Not that Game of Thrones is like very simplistic or anything. It's just easier to make videos about Game of Thrones, in my opinion, than Westworld, because you must address things very, very technically, very, very philosophically. You got to look at things like on so many different fronts that it's maddening, because you are opening yourself. You put your face on the internet and you start saying stuff. You better make sure that, for the most part, you got some backing for what you're saying. And I try to, you know, really hold to that. I could probably be more concise, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I'm lucky. Like I have a lot of really great viewers, and they do call me out on when I get something wrong. And I do try to be like, I don't know this, you know, I may not know this exactly, like with the samurai armor, for instance. Like, gosh, like there's this guy who, this is all he does. He just does samurai armor. He rebuilds, like, you know, historical armor from the Edo period. He knows all the periods and all the names and things. He's written books. So, I mean, this is somebody who lives, eats, and breathes. Like for me, like I might just, you know, drop in on it. I'll drop in on learning kind of thing on a particular segment of historical culture or whatever for maybe a week or two. And I'm just sort of picking up, you know, I'm just sort of doing an overview. So I can't possibly ever, you know, claim to be an expert on it. I know sewing. That's one thing I do know really well. So I can talk to that and fabrics and so on. But in terms of like historical, I'm coming to a lot of this new as well, like with everybody. So a lot of times when I'm sharing what I'm learning, I'm right there with you. So I always enjoy people, as long as they do it in a, you know, if someone calls me a bad word, I'm not too happy about it. You guys know that though, I think, right?
What's the purpose of the, you know, correction or the different, you know, stance that they take? Are they trying to truly have a conversation? Or are they just trying to like make somebody look fool? Or, you know, my favorite thing is if you mispronounce something on YouTube, people are just jumping all over you. It's like, okay,
I do it all the time.
Are you just looking for flaws? I mean, I know
I do it all the time. Like Game of Thrones names, I got railed for like saying, you know, Xanis Daxus, you know, whatever the hell that name is. Zaxus Danis. You guys probably know in the comments. It's some crazy name. There's some of the names, like I said, like I'll say Tyrell or Tyrell. People are like, oh, it's Tyrell or it's Tyrell. Like, no, you're saying it. I'm like, oh, for God's sakes, guys. Like, seriously. I did, but you know, like for instance, something that was helpful, like when I did my Shogun World thing, there's a cross piece that goes across the back. And I was like, I don't know what that is. I've never seen that before. From what I could tell, they actually lashed their katana in this particular way. And I had actually two people who come on and said, oh, Heidi, just so you know, this is what it is. And they explained it to me, and they even gave me a reference book. And I was so appreciative, because Hector has a thing on his back, right? It's kind of like it's like a molded piece of leather that he slides his weapon into, his gun. And so I guess with Mitushi or whatever, they wanted to have an equivalent of that. So they went with this thing, and it's called a crosshatch is what it's called. So I was like, oh my God, thank you so much, you know, for telling me that. Like, I did really appreciate it. So when it's stuff like that, but if you get someone who's just being nasty, like I just, you know, whatever, I just ignore it.
Yeah.
And some
you have to just, sorry.
I was going to say, you probably get more that type of thing than I do.
Well,
because, you know, you have more of a viewership than me. So the more people you have.
Well, hey, you got way more subs. You know, I think we did a good job with Before the Dust Settles. There's things that I realize I need to work on, vocal tics, but I think there's a lot to be said for going on air 3 people right after Westworld, when some of the brightest creators that are held the highest in this fandom, such as Preston Jacobs, Alt Shift X, wait, you know, 4 to 5 days, nothing wrong with that, to put out their video, multiple rewatches. And I made sure to go on with not only just right after, which a lot of times meaning I've missed part of it because I'm putting together the stream and fixing tech issues, but also, you know, Hex, who's a lovely person and all that, but we really disagree on almost everything. I purposely set out to put a panel that didn't agree with me, because I wanted to present a diverse conversation.
I appreciate both of your points of views.
Yeah, and neither of us are right or wrong in this. It's about, you know, bringing other things. So it's like, if you can't, first off, you have to decide if you are a like opinion, putting out videos that are like an editorial, like an opinion piece, or if you're essentially posing like a video essay, you know, like you're giving a analytical breakdown, you know, of this that is with use, like you are actually somebody that works in your field. You have formal training and stuff like that. I have done acting. I went to school for writing. I have wrote some one-act plays. You know, I mean, I'm not a television writer. I did, you know, have formal training in screenwriting and stuff like that, and I have experience in acting and production work and stuff like that. Went out to California for a little bit, so it's like you have to play to your strengths, and you have to not be afraid to put your head out there. But I think that you should back up what you say with some sort of real life experience, because there's a lot of people that are just you know, Hardwicks that are like, wasn't this awesome Game of Thrones when they killed those people? I was like, what? And the dragons came, and it's like 100,000 views. It's like, what? I guess.
No, I know. Well, it's funny because I with like New Rock Stars, which, you know, they're a huge channel. I watch them and they do their analysis of Game of Thrones. And I actually, one of the guys on there, I actually he had posted something about Star Wars and I totally called him on it. And he actually responded to me, which was really funny. Like, he was like, what are you talking about? I'm like, oh, please, that's just ridiculous. He made some kind of assessment. But they do like a whole, like, they try to do a costume breakdown on their show. And I was just like, oh my God, like, please, would you just call me or something to do this? Because it's a little, and I'm being a little bit arrogant, but I think it's kind of bad what they're doing. Like, and they don't even have
Eric Voss? Is it the host?
It's Eric Voss.
He's the worst. It's like, is this all the people that didn't make it on SourceFed that made new rock stars?
And like, they had something last year. I meant just like, they had this scene where they were like, oh, look, it's Gendry is kneeling on the beach, and it was clearly Theon, you know. It's like, well, everyone in the comments is like, that's not Gendry, that's Theon. Like, what the hell's wrong with you? Like, he can't even see what's like right in front of him. So they tried to do this costume thing about they called it their like red carpet thing, and then they were trying to do an analysis of Sansa. So they were talking about one costume, but they were showing a different costume, so they didn't even have the correct information with the costume they were talking about. I'm like, oh, like, you know, so it just was kind of frustrating. I was really happy that the costumes are being talked about, but if you're going to do it, can you at least do it correctly? Don't like screw it up, you know, because there are people like us who like take a lot of time, you know, breaking everything down. And, you know, I spent hours poring over photos and interviews with Michelle Clapton and, you know, getting inside of her head. And so when you see someone just sort of slap something together, it just makes you sad. And then they'll get like, you know, 100,000 views easily. Right. So it's a little bit sad for me when that happens.
Yeah. What's important is I watch a TV show and I'm like, hey, I watched that show. And then you get a camera and a microphone and some stuff. I'm like, I'm an expert now. But no, it's give or take. You know, there's certainly times in which I am unclear, even maybe to myself, truly in some of my videos, if I am proposing like video essay format, or not proposing, if I'm, you know, presenting a video essay format or just an opinion piece. So, you know, it's hard because you're trying to do so much, and essentially you're running a channel, which, you know, if this was done in mainstream media, would have 15 to 20 people on it. So, you know, it is what it is, but I enjoy it. And I have a, you know, a small but loyal fan base. And I don't ever delete comments that are negative, as long as they are just, you know, saying something that's intelligent and saying it for reasons, just not for the reason of purely being a dick or trying to shut something down, like opening up a conversation.
So one of the things I was going to laugh at is that it's true. Like Golf Princess, she had to take off, but she said that sometimes talking about Westworld or Game of Thrones theories is like talking about politics. And I was going to tell you, like, I belong to this group, like a YouTube group. And so the person who runs the group was saying, using Waterworld as an example of how an actor, like a good actor like Kevin Costner, can make a stinker, you know? And all of a sudden it turned into this, I love Waterworld. I thought that was a great movie. And all these people were defending Waterworld. And I'm like, oh my God, I got to get out of here. I got to get out of here because I can't even like, these people think Waterworld's a fantastic movie, and so someone was like, well, it only made $264 million. And I'm like, yeah, but it cost $171 million to make it. You know what I mean?
You're running into issues of how are you interpreting success critically, fiscally. It's all, that's why it's best to not make bold claims like that. You know, say you felt this was an example. Don't, saying things in an absolutes, like cis only use absolute, that you're going to run into trouble, because then people are going to use, what's black truths, things that are technically true, but they're just using one half of a truth to shut you down.
Well, and I've gotten myself into a situation like, I do try to say this is my opinion. Like, I mean, some of the stuff that I do is just, it's the way it is. Like the designer has said it, and that's a quote, and, you can't change that, or, this is just true. Like, it's just a true thing. But there's some things that are opinion, and I'll say this is my opinion. Like, so for instance, I might not like a design choice. Like, for instance, how dark Game of Thrones has gone last season. It went everyone went into blacks and grays and stuff. And I just thought and they changed the lighting, and that was a design decision. And I just didn't like it. I just said, I don't like this design decision. I didn't like the casting of, what's John's father's name? Sorry, another spoiler, guys. Rhaegar.
It's Rhaegar. Yes.
I did not like the casting, and someone said to me, Heidi, that's unbecoming of you as a YouTuber. They thought that was just not nice that I did that. I said, I don't know why they cast this guy. I had this impression of what he would have looked like. He's supposed to be like an Adonis or something. Well, and then they gave us this guy, so, and then someone said that was unbecoming, but it was clearly my opinion, like I wasn't.
Yeah, it's because a lot of book readers are going to definitely disagree with you on that one, because in the book it's specifically stated that that Rhaegar looks a lot like Viserys. So like that guy did. So it is whatever. If people don't take kindly to you saying negative things, so it's just like it's again, like, are you just shitting on something to shit on it? Are you trying to propose, a better way, at least in your opinion, or something that could have been more effective? Or are you actually opening up a conversation? Are you just making a statement that is just negative?
Yeah, I don't know. So at the time, like, it was kind of like you with Westworld. Like at the time, it was, I would do the videos the next day. So a lot of times it would be my initial impression, like I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe they cast this guy. Why would they have cast this guy? And then, later on after a week or so, I might, because people were like, why did they use Viserys' wig? Like what, like it looks like the exact same wig, it's not even his own hair. And so there was a lot of like that kind of stuff going on Twitter. And so I just sort of like absorb, I jumped on that bandwagon. I don't know, and part of the problem is, of course, we had such a short little meeting with him. We didn't get to, explore him at all. Whereas Viserys, who I love that actor, he was amazing. Whereas this guy kind of came off to me just kind of creepy. I had only a very short period of time, and the producers would have known that we would have such a short period of time to get an impression of that character. But because it's not really something that, costume wise, it's not really relevant completely to the thing. It's just that the actors oftentimes are tied up into the, the look of the costume. So it's hard to separate the two of them for me. You know what I mean? It's hard to separate the actor from the costume and the character. Yeah. So I was just disappointed. So anyway, I got someone called me out on it for being kind of snarky, because one of the things I've tried not to do on the channel is be snarky, because there's a lot of creators who are. So I don't want to be that kind of creator. I don't want to be a snarky creator, because I realize how hard everyone has to work. I know how hard they have to work. And, they're not always going to be able to get perfection, as there's going to be a lot of flaws along the way. And sometimes they probably just have to say, that's good enough. That's good enough. So I have to sort of appreciate that, because I understand that. I understand that sometimes I have to put out a video that may not be my best video, but sometimes I'm just like, I have to. I'm like, it's good enough. It's got to go. It's got to go out there. Yeah,
I'm in a constant state. I still haven't put out a video that I'm absolutely proud of. I would always put out nothing, or put out something that I'm gonna hate a few days later. But it is what it is. I mean, I think it's important to really realize, who because if you are putting yourself on YouTube, you are presenting this in an entertainment sense. So,
Yeah.
you know, who's watching it? Like, I have to look at Westworld as, you know, not everybody is trying to break it down as I am. So I have to, you know, be a little bit optimistic, especially right off the bat, because people did just watch a television show that they just, you know, enjoy. So you need to not crap on it for the sake of crapping on it, or to look like some intellectual elite. And so you have to, you know, play your cards right and pick your battles, not just fixate on you know, inconsistencies that don't overall matter for what at least I believe it's conveying. But it's a hard line to walk, and it's something that, you know, I get better and better at. Hopefully, I think I am at, you know, finding that middle ground of being true to what you believe in presenting an intelligent you know, premise, whatever, argument, opinion, just, you know, in your content that is enjoyable as well. Not the how much I fucking know show. Look at, hey, I bet you guys didn't realize this. Like, a lot of people always say with Westworld, and I guess it's a compliment, you know. Well, it is. Oh, thank God for people that, you know, do the explain videos. Thank God for you guys, you know, also I want to understand the show. And it's like, well, first off, thank you for appreciating the work, but you don't need me to explain the show to you. That's not, I hate using the word explained. I find it to be pretentious. I find it to be just a pompous thing to say. Oh, let me explain, okay, what you just watched, dummy. You know, whether I have more of a background in, you know, theater and acting, writing, and so on, it doesn't matter. It's like, you should look at these videos as just a way to, like, go back over what you watched, and maybe you'll see some things you didn't recognize realize before, and you can, like, you know, kind of just see how other people are viewing it, and take a little bit from here, a little bit from there. In no way, because the people that do those videos that are very strict to the way they explain it, they're very good at speaking very concisely, very clearly, but they're really not saying anything. They're literally just giving a TV guide breakdown of what happened. Dolores then got on a host and rode to Sweetwater. If you notice, when Dolores gets to Sweetwater, this is in a different timeline because the grave is not there anymore. You know, blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, you're just literally just doing a freaking DVD, whatever, you know, whatever you call those, on the
movie of the week.
No, the damn whatever, the exposition from the actors and directors.
I actually there was one show, one creator who I was watching. Have you seen the movie Under the Skin? It was so good. It's with Scarlett Johansson, and I watched it, and Jack wasn't here, and I was like, I have no idea what is going on here. And I watched one guy, and it was an explaining video. I have to say, I think he did a pretty good job. But again, it is just an interpretation. Like an explained video, they may not have it right. Like I was saying about Denis Villeneuve, like a lot of directors will say, well, what do you think happens? They don't like to explain their stories, their movies. They want the audience to try to determine what's happened there, rather than have, you know, someone like themselves explain what happened. That's why I was kind of like, you know, with Lisa Joy, I was like, I don't really know why you would go on a bunch of interviews trying to explain what had happened. Shouldn't you just have been able to do that through your writing? I mean, the only reason why she has the opportunity to go and talk about it is because she's a showrunner. But if she had just been from the writing room, she probably wouldn't be able to have that opportunity. So if it's the same with Dave and Dan, like, I think, you know, you should be speaking through your writing rather than trying to go out then after the fact and explain it.
Yeah, especially when they're not really even answering questions. They're just giving like a freaking like speech.
Yeah, like when they do those Comic-Cons and stuff, it drives me crazy because they can't answer anything. So I'm like, why are you even here? Like, go away. Like, it kind of annoys me that they're there, and then someone will ask a question and they'll just be like there's one of my favorites. Have you ever seen this? This is this guy who would dress up like Benjen Stark. Did you ever see this guy? So he would dress up like Benjen Stark at every Comic-Con and then go to the panel and say, where's Benjen Stark? Because of course everybody had wanted to know, where is he? What happened to him? And then so Dave and Dan are always like, weren't you here last year? And they would never say what had happened. But yeah, it was true. It was just like, yeah, like that's like a loose end. What happened there? And of course it did get finally paid off. But I think that sometimes they would take ages to pay off something. Justin, while I had
show don't tell is
yeah
it's a general rule of storytelling. So if you have to go on a freaking run, they call it going through the car wash with your media, your marketing, going through all the talk show circuits and late nights, explaining what you just did, that you didn't achieve what you set out to do. But again, it's very ambitious, but when you choose, especially a style in which lends itself to a misdirection with that nonlinear narrative, your payoff does need to add up more so than your suspension of disbelief has to be a little less. You get a little less slack because you have, purposely misdirected your audience. So when you have a spoiler alert, an ending of somebody, just a simple body swap, it's like, no, you didn't need to do that. So like, it's like, well, does it really? Yeah, it does matter in this case because they, misdirected us for 10 hours, 10 and a half hours here to pay it off like that.
Justin, I just want to say, Chrissy of Oldstones is here. I want to say hello.
Hi, Chrissy.
And You Do It is here. He's one of my followers, lovely creator as well. And Jasmine, I didn't say hello to her. So we'll just say,
I like that name, Jasmine.
Jasmine List. And Angel Over is here as well. So, she says, what does the spider represent in Enemy? I just want to know. See, I don't want to tell you. You need to figure that out yourself. Have you seen Enemy?
Nope.
I have to tell you, that movie, if anybody watched Enemy, is shot in my old apartment building in Mississauga. I was like, holy crap, that's my old building. Because Denis Villeneuve, he's Quebecer. He's from Quebec, but he shot, I guess, Enemy in Toronto because Jake Gyllenhaal was in it. It's a good movie, Justin. I think you'd like it.
I will check it out.
It's about a doppelganger.
Oh, well, I gotcha.
Yeah, I know. I think you'd like it. It's before he did Arrival. So it's the movie before.
I love Arrival.
Yeah, if you love Arrival, I don't know if you've seen the new Blade Runner. I wasn't as crazy about Blade Runner as a lot of the critics because I like Blade Runner, the original is my favorite movie of all time. So it had a lot to live up to. So it was a little bit hard for me, but I loved Arrival.
Surprisingly, I'm not like huge into like even the sci-fi genre. Westworld was a happy surprise for me. I almost didn't start watching it because I don't usually watch sci-fi. I just don't. I don't know. It just didn't really have an appeal to me. But then when I saw like the philosophical side and the big emphasis on storytelling, I was like, okay, I love this. This has so many layers. So, surprisingly, when people like talk about like Ex Machina and like, Blade Runner, I'm familiar, I've seen, but I'm not like going to break that down because I don't feel I'm qualified to.
Yeah. I wanted to show you something. I don't know if you saw this. Can I just show you something quickly?
Nope. Yes.
This is for you. Okay, can you see that? Can you see that on your screen?
Yeah, hold on to me. Sweetwater. Oh, God.
Yeah, okay, so I came across this because there's this costume designer. She does Travelers, I think. And she's like, they were talking about designing for TV, and she goes, oh, I did this really great little movie called Sweetwater. It's set in the Old West, and Ed Harris is in it. And I'm like, what? So I looked it up. So this is it. And here's the picture of what Ed Harris looks like in his costume. There he is there. Isn't that funny? So he's playing, I don't know if he's playing like the sheriff. Someone in my comments said, it was on Twitter, they said, oh, it's not the best movie. But I just thought that was so funny that the town was called Sweetwater. But there is a Sweetwater, apparently, I think in Nevada or something like that. So there is an actual town,
quite a few.
But it's set sort of in the same time period and everything as Westworld. So I thought that was really funny. I did not know that. So it was one of those small little movies. She said it kind of ended up going directly to video.
That's always a good sign.
Yeah, and Cor Angars has asked if I've seen Frontier. Have you seen that, Justin? I've watched it. It's on CBC in Canada.
Yeah, it's on Netflix. I've been meaning to watch it. I've heard good things.
I've watched a few episodes of it. I'm gonna keep. I'm actually. It's pretty good. So it's that would be, I think, Frontier. So that would be like the fur trade period, and I sort of think it's in like the 1800s. I'm not quite sure. There was like the beaver, like Canada was like really
pelts.
Big pelts. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Anyway, so I thought I'd show you that. I thought you might think that's kind of fun.
I like that. Is that Lee and Knight? Who is in the background there? Is that what's his name? Is that Gerald? It looks like Butler, but it's not. All right, never mind.
It's actually the guy who's in it is from Star Trek. The one guy, Jason Isaacs.
Gotcha.
Yeah, he's from
and Jason
Star Trek.
Aldean's in it. Oh.
And who?
Jason Aldean.
Oh, I don't even know who that is.
He's a country singer.
Oh, really? Okay. And the girl, January Jones, she's from Mad Men.
Yeah, I hate it. I hate her. Betty Draper is like, I watched Mad Men so many times. It's one of my favorite shows. I absolutely despise Betty Draper. And I feel like a dick, but when she gets her diagnosis in the show, it's going to be a very terrible thing for me to say. I was just like, finally, good. It's the worst thing. I hated her.
She, anything I've seen her in, she hasn't been very good. Like she apparently, one of the someone told me who had seen the movie. They said it's an okay movie. She's not very good. Like it could have been like I think what had happened was after she did Mad Men, or during the time she did Mad Men, she was in one of the X-Men movies. And
Days of Future Past.
Yeah, so
she did a good job in Mad Men acting wise, but her character was so unlikable to me that I just hated her, the way she treated her daughter and all this. I just despised her, that she got this terrible diagnosis, and I was just like, oh, thank God. Oh, good. Yeah, I mean, it makes me feel like a horrible person, but it's just it was
the same with
a good part of the show, though.
Yeah, it's the same with what do you call it in Breaking Bad? The wife got a lot of, the actor who played the wife, she got so much hate mail, and you feel bad for these people. I was talking about this the other day. I said, okay, like these, there are some people, unfortunately, in fandom who can't sort of separate reality from, entertainment, and they'll actually, like this whole thing is, there's been a lot of this happening in Star Wars fandom, which is really, really makes me sad. People getting attacked and having to close their Twitter accounts, and just anyway.
Yeah, that happened to the Asian, sorry, I don't know her name, but the Asian actress.
Yeah, and also Joseph, or is it Boyega? What his name? The guy who plays Finn. He had some problems because, God forbid, there be a black person in Star Wars. That. Wait,
there's a black guy in. Oh, yeah, I'm joking.
Yeah, I mean, I guess Lando is okay. Lando's okay because he
sold cognac.
It's okay, but to have like the hero be a black person, it's just like, no.
Well, are we really ready for that? I mean, come on.
It's only 2018. It was funny because this week there was this whole discussion about Scarlett Johansson. I don't know if you saw this.
Oh, yes. Playing a trans.
And it's funny because
she has put herself on the burner, and I don't necessarily agree. She is, there's been with Ghost in the Shell, the whole argument of whitewashing and stuff like that. Her response left a little bit to be desired. I don't have an issue with her playing that character, but when the response she had to these issues that people have was, well, why don't you call Jared Leto and all this, and that's as soon as I mean, I don't know who her publicist is, but they need to be fired for letting that get out, because you can't ignore other people's especially in the business of being somebody in the public eye, or in general, to ignore people's feelings, whether you think they're valid or not. It's a very ignorant way to approach it. You do not just disregard. You should say something like, I feel like I can embody this part, and I feel like I can open up, avenues for more, people of the trans community and stuff like that. And, I think that, I mean, there's a lot of outs with that as well, with the trans being literally, like in limbo, that you could literally make a lot of arguments for why she should be able to play this character. It's not so black and white with this character, but they just spit and be like, no, why don't you call these other people who did it already?
I know that was just, it was just, I don't know. The whole thing was kind of saying, because I'm a big advocate for people can't, like, for instance, I think Westworld did a great job of this, like hiring Japanese actors to play Japanese characters and hiring First Nations actors to play native characters. I'm a big advocate of it, and having like a diverse cast. Like one of the shows that does this really, really well, and I'm not saying everybody has to do it, but it's nice to see it, is we were talking about it earlier. It's a sci-fi show. I've forgotten what it's called. It's got a hugely diverse cast, and it's really, really nice to see that. And I think the idea is that we just, you want to see, like in the old days, like, back, 30, 40, 50 years ago, they'd have John Wayne playing, Genghis Khan or something. And nowadays that probably wouldn't be considered cool.
Listen here, Pilgrim, And
well, and he's not even, sorry if there's any John Wayne fans, but he doesn't have a lot of range.
Well, you with spaghetti westerns, you have what's known as, and somebody just brought this up in one of my videos. I forget what it was, but it was something about race with Westworld, and I forget. Then they felt bad about bringing it up, and I go, no, because they did a good job of not doing what spaghetti westerns do, which is usually it's a trope called the white savior complex. It's where the white man comes into town, saves everybody from the barbarians, usually Native Americans, anything that's not white Caucasian male. And this is still sadly prevalent in even like movies like The Patriot. There's a white savior complex there. He's the only white guy in South Carolina in a time of slavery that pays his slaves. He saves. It's like all a bunch of inaccurate bullshit, you know. But he still is just the white guy that's coming in and doing all the right things. But it's like, you know, there shouldn't be diversity for diversity's sake. The best person should get the role. But you definitely, if somebody is of a certain ethnicity, they should cast somebody of that. It just makes sense.
It was really interesting because Outlander got a lot of trouble. Well, I shouldn't say there was some controversy. So Outlander is like, this is a thing a lot of times people don't know. So this is an example of where, you know, this is a situation where this is what they had to do. So they're shooting in Scotland. And they go into a season where it takes place, I think, in Pennsylvania. Sorry guys, I haven't read all the books. So I'm not exactly sure. So, and what happens is the protagonists, they encounter some First Nations. I think they're Plains Indians down in the States, in Pennsylvania, during it would be the 1700s, 18th century. So, but because it's shot in Scotland and they get certain tax credits, they had to hire Canadian First Nations. And I'm not sure why this is. They just did. They could not hire American First Nations. So people are like, why are you not hiring American First Nations when they're portraying, you know, and it totally does make sense. But
are you guys taking our jobs now? Are you guys taking our jobs too? You bastards.
And we're taking back.
We're building another wall.
We're taking back. we're taking back Rachel McAdams and who else are we taking? We're taking a few of you back. You guys have put tariffs on us. You know, we're not buying your ketchup anymore, folks. Like, this is where Canadians. This is so funny.
I'm not gonna talk politics, but I'll say that those aren't my views.
Last week, Patrick, it was so funny. Last week, Patrick and I, because it was Canada Day when we did the live stream, we were just going on about Canada like nonstop, driving everybody crazy, I'm sure. But I laughed because the one place that Canadians take their stand is the ketchup. They're like, we're not buying American ketchup. Gosh darn it. To put on our poutine, we're going to buy Canadian ketchup. So this is what's happened in Canada. We're doing a boycott on American ketchup. I still have a bottle of Heinz ketchup in my fridge that I have to finish, so I'm not gonna. Well,
you're not Canadian. We got a comment about Scarjo here. The problem with Scarjo is that she was misgendering the person the movie is based on. She was already starting out wrong. She is a producer in the film, so she should have been more educated on transition. And yeah, like I said, I mean, you could probably make a lot of arguments for why, like, you know, she should be able to play this character, but it's so mishandled. And the whole trans community is something that I feel, you know, is, you know, at least for how they're being, they're very. It's such a touchy subject because it's hard for a lot of people to grasp. You know, your base demographic of just I'm not going to say they're ignorant or anything, but not everybody is going to be, you know, understanding. Unfortunately, that's how things work. And she should have understood this, but I have an issue with these other people that have won awards, like Jared Leto and what's his name from that. The trans now I'm forgetting the name of it.
Jeremy Tambor? Is it Jeremy Tambor?
Yeah, he said that he would have they're all saying they would have gave their awards back now and they wouldn't have took those roles. It's like, wait a minute. Okay, you won Oscars, you won Golden Globes, and now you're spitting on, like, Scarlett Johansson should have, yes, I totally agree with this person here that she should have been more educated on it. It's so touchy. It's so touchy that, like, even me saying that, like, there's like could be all I'm playing is devil's advocate and saying that if I was a PR person and had to do that job, I could probably, you know, pose a better argument than fuck you, your feelings don't count.
Well, I guess this is how I feel about, like, she did Ghost in the Shell and she got a lot of flack on that. And it's funny because Chris Stuckman, who I watch his show, he does reviews of movies. He's really good. And he saw it and he said, you know, it got a lot of flack, but it's actually a good movie. The guy who played from Game of Thrones, what's his name is in it? The guy, the Iron Islands guy, the brother who killed.
Euron Greyjoy.
Euron Greyjoy's in it. Yeah. Yeah, that actor, he's in it. Anyway, it was a pretty good movie, the concept, but I'm like, I don't understand why they couldn't have hired an Asian actor for it. I didn't really understand that at all. I'm thinking, I don't get it. It's kind of like, I think Matt Damon got some flack as well for a movie he did. And so it's kind of like
that was bullshit because China hired him because they
that's what I
wanted a
heard.
named
That's what I
actor.
heard. I've heard that
So it's
too.
like, okay, they made that decision. So it's all, you know, and things like, you know, somebody said in here, the trans communities can see, I'm not going to get behind that because it's so touchy. I don't understand. I sympathize. I cannot claim that I understand how they feel, so I won't claim I do, and I won't take a stance saying that like, oh, well, they're confused. I mean, that's not the right way to go about that. It's like, listen, everybody has their own issues, and a lot of people can't understand other people's issues. That's fine. It doesn't mean that it's something bad, something good. It's just
some people were saying that you know, these projects wouldn't even see the light of day if it wasn't for like director and then Scarlett Johansson. But I guess what my attitude is that, you know, she's in a position of power, and so as a producer, she could potentially give this opportunity to a trans actor. Like, you know, someone was saying Chaz Bono would have been perfect. I don't know if you seen the character, but Chaz Bono would be perfect casting for a situation like this. She
needs to pick her projects better in general. She's been under scrutiny for multiple, which similar but not the same. Very important to not even just throw together whitewashing and trans issues together, because that's also ignorant. But the thing is, her choice of parts have been controversial. She should have stayed out of this one. So, because there's the argument of, okay, well, transparency, that's the show I was talking about. They need to, you know, how many prominent trans actors are there? I don't know personally. You know what I mean? I'm assuming not a lot right now. Hopefully that'll change. So it's like, you know, there is that argument, but it's like, that's not my fight. I can't. What am I going to pose to? I would say Scarlett Johansson shouldn't have took the part because, I mean, it just common sense says you've already got a bunch of like shade. You need to get rid of it.
And someone was saying, like, Richard Krause, he's a critic in Canada. He was saying that unfortunately too, as soon as like you haven't even done the movie and you've already put a stigma on the movie. So the movie, you know, it's already hard enough to get a movie, like produce a movie, and then, you know, get it edited and then get it out to theaters. It's already a difficult enough thing to do and have it and promote it and so on without having like sort of like, you know, it being marred with some kind of controversy. So it's, you know, like, why would you want to even court that like that? I guess that's my attitude is, why would you even court the controversy? Why don't you just avoid it altogether? There's got to be tons. I mean, she's a young woman. She's going to be doing an Avengers, you know, Black Widow designated movie, her own movie finally she's getting. And she would argue that why hasn't there been a female, you know, led Avengers movie? She probably would be arguing about that. Captain Marvel. Okay, Captain Marvel. Okay, but up to this point, like, she's been in all these ensemble movies, but she hasn't yet had her own movie. And I mean, they made a joke about that. So she would be the first one to cry about that. And yet, you know, so this is the thing. I don't know.
But is Black Widow, I mean, what is their skill set? She's good at karate.
I have no idea, to be honest with you.
She's just like Hawkeye. You know what I mean? Like, that's, it's not that you're not a leading role because of your sex. You're not a leading role because of your character that you're big. Black Widow can kick really well and do flips. Okay. Iron Man is literally like a fucking super robot. Thor is a god. So, okay, you didn't lead the Avengers because you're just kicking well. That's why Hawkeye doesn't have one, because he's an archer. Yeah,
because I have to tell you, when I used to sell costumes, and we sold the Black Widow, and I barely could sell them. Like, it was not, no one was like, I want to dress like Black Widow. I mean, we really didn't have a lot of people want. The one that was huge was the girl from The Watchmen. That was like, everyone wanted to dress like her. So, you know, a lot of these are Wonder Woman. You know, everyone wants to be Wonder Woman. Nobody wanted to be Black Widow. So I don't know.
I see a lot of prostitutes dressed like Black Widow. I don't know if it's on purpose. There's some controversy.
What do you do?
I'm joking.
What? Oh, you know, this is really funny. This is a funny story, actually. Years ago, when I was in college, I went to school downtown, and there was this guy in my class, and we're walking along, we're coming back, and the school was right downtown, was right down the street from a popular area where hookers frequented. And so we're walking along, and one of the guys in my class goes up to one of the hookers and starts talking to her. Sorry, streetwalkers. I shouldn't be saying hookers. And And I'm like, oh my God, what the
You're
fuck are you
losing
doing?
the whole hooker demographic.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, oh my God, what the hell are you doing? Like, what are you doing, Barry? So he comes back to me and I'm like, oh my God, Barry, what was going on there? Why were you talking to that streetwalker? And he says, oh yeah, it was nothing. We went to high school together. Like, so she was, she was in her 20s. It was really tragic, but I was just like, why are you talking to that girl? So yeah.
Hey, I support any decision she makes.
So I don't know why, I don't know where you live that you would be seeing streetwalkers or ladies of the evening. I used
to DJ strip clubs, so
Oh, you did?
Yeah, so I literally was very, unfortunately, hands-on very bad situations.
Angel Over says, has anyone watched the OA? One of the characters is a young Asian trans man. Oh, you know what? I have seen that. And it's, I don't know if you've seen the OA, Justin. That show
got a lot of praise in them.
That show would probably make you mad, but I loved it. Like, this is one thing, Hacks and he didn't like the ending of it. I thought it was brilliant. I loved it, but I love that. I love that director. So yeah, so that's good. And also, if anyone's ever seen Sense8, there's a really great trans woman in that. But you know what's happened there is, the Wachowski brothers. You probably heard this story, from The Matrix. Yeah, the Wachowski brothers they both transitioned and are both now the Wachowski sisters. So they're going to be. I think this is what's probably going to have to happen. They're going to start doing projects that have LGBT characters more so than they would have in the past. So they didn't have that.
Yeah, you write about what you know. And then George R. R. Martin has had a nice response to an African-American attendee of a conference. No, it was just a conference. Asked, why isn't there more African-American characters in Game of Thrones? In George R. R. Martin, some people, I love this answer because it's very true, coming from a writer's standpoint. I can't write for people that I personally, I don't, think I can portray like accurately. Like, you write about what you know. So he responded with, why isn't there more African-American writers in fantasy? And then you would see that. It's like, do you want him just to put in stereotypical, like, people just for the sake of diversity? That's not good. That's not true. I mean, like, if it's not authentic, what is it worth? It's just injecting, I'm not talking about like, whatever, like just taking jobs or anything like that. I'm talking about just writers only can write about what they know. If you're not trans, if you're not of a certain ethnicity, so how are you going to write about that?
Yeah. So I think what this is saying then is that we need more diverse writers. In television and in film, and like, for instance, like Black Panther, which had an almost visibly African-American cast. A lot of them are British, some of them were big names, some of them weren't. I think that movie showed that a movie like that's directed by a Black man, that's starring a largely Black cast, can do quite well box office wise. So I think that's
like the best.
It was great. Like, Thor was my favorite. I think Thor Ragnarok is my favorite, which is directed by Taika Waititi, who is actually a New Zealand Maori.
He did Black Panther too. He's not. Didn't he do Black Panther? Oh no, he didn't. No, he didn't.
It's I don't know the name of I can't remember the name of the director of Black Panther.
You're right.
He's
I was thinking
American.
of Thor Ragnarok.
He's he's a really young guy. He's like in his 30s. He's really young. And then Taika Waititi is actually Maori.
New Zealand. He's
from New Zealand. He's from New Zealand. So he's Maori, like, native Maori.
Yeah, native Maori. I know about that. No,
so like the Whale Rider, so it's like, so it's showing that you can have a different sort of voice coming from a more diverse voice, but yet it can still be successful. Game of Thrones,
even like how many? I think that we will definitely get a lot more African American writers of fantasy now, because look at the community, because we have Game of Thrones is so widely received so well across the board that you have a lot of people that you wouldn't usually attract to fantasy, because fantasy before, if not to like make it very basic or simple or oversimplify the situation, but it is a lot of like young nerdy white kids with Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
That are,
Now,
you know
now
what I
back
mean?
back to your point though about the casting. I have to disagree about the casting of Game of Thrones not be diverse. Though I mean, you've got the Dothraki is extremely diverse. Pretty much all of Essos is.
Well, that's not my argument.
Oh,
It's
okay,
just
not your argument. Oh, okay.
it was a question posed to him at a conference by an African American gentleman.
There's no African American though, but there are, like, and then you also have Dorne. You've got Muslim actors, you've got Hispanic actors, you've got like Indian actors, like the girl who played I can't remember her name, but she's Indian, and then of course a lot of the actors like in Marine and all that, the slave owners and that most of them are like Middle Eastern Muslim actors. So I think, and then they've got some Chinese Asian actors as well, which are supposed to represent Yiti, which they don't have a huge representation of Yiti. But according to
fictionalized civilization, so that's advantageous to be able to do diverse casting, because you're not portraying a real world culture. You're portraying something you have created, so you're not being untrue to it, because it's literally by definition impossible.
But for the most part, Game of Thrones is based upon Great Britain and parts of Europe and the North. And then, so basically, it's like British medieval history is pretty much Westworld, the North. And then some parts are like Holland and got like Germany and Italy and that type of thing. So it's going to be like Western civilization.
Yeah, if you flip Europe upside down, you pretty much get the map.
Is that how it worked? Is that how it works?
Yeah, a lot of ways. You flip England, especially the Isles. I mean, you got the Reach is generally it's your breadbasket. A lot of people see that as France.
Yeah.
Scotland is definitely the North. It's I mean, you got a lot of the War of the Roses. I don't want to get into it all, but I mean, but when you get into the Middle Eastern, of course, Essos is based off essentially the Middle East. There's also hints of with the Dothraki, you have hints of what would you would probably say hints of the Huns, but there's also hints of other I can't think
other
of
horse cultures. Well, I was thinking even the Plains Indians, the Dothraki. I haven't done my video on the Dothraki yet, but I think that's
Mongols, Native Americans, even the Turkish in the 13th century. So I mean, you have a great mix. So but you're right about what and what. But
even like Michelle Clapton, she used the Turkish armor for the Dorne armor. That crazy weird Dorne armor that they wear. That's apparently based off of Turkish armor, because you wouldn't want to have metal against your skin, so it would be lined with something. So that's what she came up with at that. And then of course, the North, Westeros and all that would be, definitely British medieval, although she does have a lot of other influences there. And then of course you got the Japanese and everything influence in
if you look at the medicine, it's like 18th century. If you look at the feudalistic culture, you've got about 13th, 14th century Europe. I mean, there's a lot of mixes with medicine and the technology. It's a little bit of everything. There's a specific word that I feel stupid for not knowing right now, but for making up your own world as a writer. And then that's what you do. You take a little bit from what you know.
And he like, I've seen a lot of interviews with him. Like he's sort of riffing off of Tolkien. I mean, he was a huge fan of Tolkien. So that style of fantasy, and then also him basing it off of real world history. Like apparently the Red Wedding was based off of an actual, the Red Wedding. He apparently based it. So, and then the 100 Years' War, he's used some of that. Some of the characters, other people I've read have talked about how they're based off of actual, or he's done hybrids of them. Like Joffrey would have probably been based off of two or three different Mad Kings.
Right. Yeah. There's a PC Gamer who's actually perft timing. One of my Patreons.
PC Gaming.
Gareth. He requested I did a Owen Glendower, a Welsh hero, in Rob's video, which I did. He was my first Patreon. I did a bite-sized history, and he's Owen Glendower is a source of that George took a little bit from his story. He was a Welsh. He's referred to as the last true Prince of Wales. He fought for Welsh independence in the 13th or the 14th century. Sorry. I love doing that video, though.
That's awesome.
Anybody that's ever tried to pronounce any Welsh words or the way in which the Welsh speak, it's hell. It is just the hardest thing to do in the world, but very interesting history from Wales. And it's amazing how vastly different Wales is from the rest of England.
Oh yeah. Oh, Jamie Hughes. He actually, I felt terrible. He has a channel where he does movie reviews, and he was I had him on after I had you on a couple of weeks ago, and then I thought he was British, and it turns out he's Welsh, and I'm like, oh my god, like I know that's a huge insult, right? I'm always terrible with accents. So yeah, I was asking him about a few different ways to say things. So that was it was really cool. Oh, you know, speaking of people being based upon people, I wanted to show you, I was talking to you about this earlier. Here, let me just go find it here. It's in my video. I don't know if you had a chance to see it. So one of the things that, Jonathan Nolan, I think they call him Jonah, by the way. Do they call him Jonah?
Yeah, it's both. If I wanted to be a dick, I'd be like, it's Jonah.
Yeah. So here, I'll show this to you here. I'm just going to go here. Okay. So Musashi, I think that's how you say it, guys.
Yeah, I did a video after it.
Yeah. So, and this actor, he's a great actor. Like, he's a fantastic actor. He was in The Last Samurai, if you guys ever saw that, with Tom Cruise.
Right. The actor that's the White Savior right there.
The White Savior. Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So, and even Dances with Wolves would probably be the same thing, right?
It's absolutely something.
Who came up with that term, by the way? That's a really interesting.
It's just the name of a trope. It's not a very advantageous one, but yeah.
So I found this really interesting. So Jonathan Nolan stated this, that Musashi is actually based off of Musashi Miyamoto. So there's actually a person named Musashi who was a 1954 Japanese film by Hiroshi Inagaki, and it was the first of 3 movies in the samurai trilogy. So Jonathan Nolan he talked a lot about how he watched a lot of Japanese movies growing up, and with his brother, who's Christopher Nolan. And so the movie stars celebrated Japanese actor Toshiro Mifune. Do you know him, Toshiro Mifune? He's in all those Kurosawa movies. So
all I know is that the Westerns were heavily influenced by the samurai movies. I mean, your Magnificent Seven and all that, it's all just direct adapted.
Absolutely. So Jonathan Nolan said his favorite actor of all time is Toshiro Mifune, who's in all those samurai movies. So here, I'll show you what the so what do you say here? I forgot where it was here. So that was the name of the movie. Yeah, so here I have the Magnificent. And then I wanted to show you the other one, which I thought was interesting as well. I've actually found this on Wikia. I don't know if you guys ever go to Wikia. I don't tend to rely on it, but occasionally I go there and I'll find a little, I'm like, oh, I didn't know that kind of thing. So it's usually like run by nerds who tend to... Careful. Well, I'm a nerd too. It tends to be, they tend to comb over a lot of information. So I thought I went to it just to look up him a bit. Here, I have to go through this. This is my video here. Where is it here? Sorry, guys. Oh, here he is. Okay. So, so Westworld Wiki supposes that the character of Shogun is based upon Tokugawa Ieyasu. So he's actually the founder of the Edo period shogunate. And apparently he was a real bastard as well in real life. So when they're portraying the shogun kind of like a sadist, apparently the real life Tokugawa was also a real dick. And so what I read here is that in real life, the Ieyasu was respected, but also cruel. He even executed his first wife and eldest son.
What did they do, though? I mean, I think you're making some pretty blanket statements here, and I think that I don't want to offend anybody. I think you might have been an all right guy. I didn't know.
Well,
I mean, hey, that wife and kid might have messed up.
I think he wanted to marry somebody else. Oh, I don't know. They probably spoke against him. That's probably what it was.
Either one's good with me. Justified.
Yeah. So, anyways, apparently he was. So apparently he was a very highly respected ruler, but feared. But he was the very first shogun. So that's what Wikia supposes that he was based upon. So I don't have evidence of that. I just thought that was interesting. It did kind of make sense, I think. But they just call him Shogun. They don't even give him a name, I don't think.
That's not the best, but
it's not a very good name, So I thought
it's a feudal class.
Oh, and then the other thing I want to talk to you about, because we're going to be wrapping up soon, guys, is I think I mentioned to you about this thing with the makeup on Ghost Nation. I just discovered this today. So here I've got the Jason, I'm just going to go back to this. Justin, sorry. I'm going to go back to this. So I've got some pictures of the Ghost Nation here, just in their regular.
And I'm here. I just have to hit my camera really quick.
No, that's fine. So this is from the episode Kiksuya. If I don't know if I'm saying that right, guys.
Kiksuya.
I know. I keep wanting to say that too. Kiksuya. That I might do a video on it. Like I need to look up some information. Like I really don't have any understanding of this group of individuals. So I would, just to show the respect of it, I would need to.
Yeah, that's why it's like you don't. That's intelligent. Yeah. Neither do I. So you don't act like you do, because you're just going to get a lot of people angry, and you're not doing anybody any good.
No, and I mean, like, it's kind of like with First Nations, like in Canada, we call them First Nations. And with First Nations, there are so many nations. And so it's just like, and each is its own unique group. So in Canada, for instance, we have so many nations, but the two main nations in Ontario are the Iroquois and the Algonquian. And what's different about them is that one of them are hunters and gatherers, and one of them are like farmers. So, their lifestyles would be very different. So whereas my understanding of Ghost Nation is that they are Plains Indians. So they would have hunted buffalo, and they would have used cliffs and things like that, chased the buffalo off the edge kind of thing. But so they would, so what they would have done would be completely different than any other. So, you really have to study it in order to get it right. But what I did come about, so if anybody has seen Dances with Wolves, which isn't necessarily the best, most accurate version of the Lakota Sioux, that's actually, that's them, that's telling the story of them at war with the Pawnee. So what this group of individuals would do, it says that with the painting, this is what I sort of found fascinating, they would actually take minerals that they would harvest from the soil, and then they would cook it, like, heat it really, really to a high temperature. And then once it cooled, they would crush it and make it into a powder, and then they would mix it with like an animal fat, whatever the animals that they would have, buffalo, what have you. And so, and then the other thing I found out was really interesting is that they actually would trade with it. Like they would trade it with the white man. So as a commodity. But in terms of the painting of their body, so this is what I found was sort of significant. So they said, of course, the men would be the warriors, right? So the painting of a man's face and body among the Plains tribes during the Buffalo days was said to be a form of mental conditioning. Warriors would paint themselves with personal protective designs and colors before they engaged in battle with an enemy, hence the stereotypical term war paint. So I'm getting this from a website I found on sort of native customs. So this,
I did a few lectures about the Lakota in preparation for some of my videos, which I didn't end up utilizing because I probably shouldn't even speak now. But it always made sense to me, and I don't want to be like I called it, but I did. Since season 1, I was like, it would make sense that, that the Ghost Nation, I said it a million times, they're not going to be portrayed as savages. It's going to change.
Yes.
Lisa Joy and Nolan, I'm not saying you have to be, I'm progressive. I'm not shoving my liberal views down anybody's throats, but I'm saying that you have to look at who's making this. They're conveying their ideals. Okay. And they are not going to frame Native Americans as savages. Okay. Yeah. This is not going to happen. So, and it also made sense that they're going to be more able to, find their center or whatever, to be, because indigenous cultures, there's a lot of actual biology behind it. There's a lot of actual facts behind this, that they are far more in touch with their spiritual side. I don't mean spiritual animals, stuff like that. I mean, they don't outsource anything, and they live in such a tight-knit community in the way in which they were not meddled with as much, because even within the parks narrative, Ghost Nation are outliers. So they're not in the same, like, very tight loops like Dolores is meant to be, assaulted every night. So it just makes sense that they'd be meddled with less. and they're going to be able to, you know, because the less humans have their hands on the host, the more they evolve. As we see, it's not us making them, you know, advance. It's the lack of our attention. It's the evolution of the mistake. So I found it, you know, very interesting. I watched it was called The Seven. Oh, I can't remember exact name, but it's this I don't know, I guess you'd call it an ideology that they live by, the Lakota. It's called like the Seven Nations. I'm sorry, but it was really beautiful. It was really beautiful, and it really is kind of like a naturalist approach and a very smart approach about how to value the land and value your children, because you should like always be looking like, you know, like 7 generations ahead and so on. I'm probably really messing this up, but it really made sense in that way of thinking. What is exactly what Akichita embraced, because look at what he did when he did the whole Greek tragedy thing of going to the death to find his loved one, and then he came back. He didn't get her back, but we noticed what he did is went around and educated his people. That is, again, I don't know, it's the 7 something, but I watched this beautiful lecture. I'll try to find the link, put it in the comments, from a Lakota Indian. Probably didn't even say that right. And he spoke about stuff like this and about the importance of educating, you know, the people in his community, and about how looking to the future. And that's what Akichita was doing. He wasn't just mourning. He was like moving forward. He's like, all right, now let me get this rolling for other people. He was literally teaching them. He wasn't dragging them out of the cave, if you're using the allegory of the cave. He was embracing what he could in embracing this idea of, you know, we need to evolve. We need to become more in touch, you know, and having a nomadic lifestyle, an indigenous lifestyle, is advantageous to your spiritual side, because you don't outsource things in your life. Everything is done within your own community, and a lot of things are done yourself, you know. So you're, and if you're living off the land, if you're living off the land and everything's code, you're living off code. So
one of my pleasant surprises when I found out this Akichita, sorry, is that how you say? I don't know. Had lived for 10 years without actually being killed. That was such an amazing surprise to me, because I had just assumed that the hosts would be slaughtered, you know, like weekly or daily or something like that. I had no idea, but it was kind of an interesting, like the fact that he could be off on a loop, like you know, he's obviously had a bigger you know, net or whatever they call it. Like
he had a looser restraint. And the thing you have to realize too is now I'm framing it like an asshole. What? Yeah. Oh, let me explain this to you, Heidi. It was interesting about that. I'm gonna fansplain this to you, but the way in which okay, so when he gets brought in, the reason he's not updated is because of the chaos of Arnold's original suicide. Okay, so they talk about not messing. All they change is his. They don't change anything to do with his memories or anything to do with his, like, I think they call it heretics. They change only like a few things with his behavioral, like such as like aggression and stuff like that. So he maintains his memories and also doesn't get fully updated. Now we have to believe, now there's the suspension of disbelief, which you can attribute to the nomadic lifestyle that he was able to survive for 10 years. But then people will be like, well, Ford, see, still was the one that made him who he was. Because he had to step in to make this possible. I'm like, listen, even if you want to think that way, what's beautiful and what they did so well this season, one good thing I can say is how they handled that. Because even if you say Ford is the one that cloaked him, once he realized and was observing him, like you saw him doing, he is cloaking him. He is assuring that he doesn't get meddled with. So even if Ford did plan it all, he didn't put his fingerprints all over Akichita in Ghost Nation. You know what I mean? Like he just allowed, even if he pulled all the strings in the world, it's not like the heavy-handedness with Dolores, the coercion to pull the gun to commit the original sin was so heavy. You know what I mean? Like that's why it was so much more natural with Ghost Nation, was because he just let it evolve. He said, watch me for a little bit more. I'll watch you. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like kind of stalkerish, but you know, it made sense. It's like hands off. And that's who he's talking about in his speech at the end of season 1. He says, I saw somebody that could change. He's talking about Akichita. You know? Yeah.
Justin, I just want to read this comment from Pretty Dark. I'm sorry, I don't know if you're a guy or a girl. Do you know?
I don't.
Do you know Pretty Dark?
I know I'm a guy.
Well, I know. Yeah. Okay. They say, because I don't know. Considering what exquisite nature the park makers took with the language and physical characteristics, I'm grossed out by their costuming abilities. Okay, I'm not sure why. Also, if you remember back to season 1, the wandering native tribe called Underground Vac Suit, Kachina style dolls, and Kachina are Hopi or Apache, not Lakota. So they have multiple tribes. It's a sister word to the Anishinaabe. Okay, sorry guys, I can say that, which means warrior. Well, I mean, we know it's Lakota because they're speaking Lakota. Now I think Lakotas are a variety of tribes, though they're not just one specific tribe. I'm not
the
sure.
Ghost Nation that is framed in season 2 is Lakota, and that is the way they describe them. That is not my words. That is the showrunners' words. We have to go off what they present us. You are correct in saying that there are different tribes. To my knowledge, and trust me, I go over this show very extensively. There is not a lot of specifics, but yes, you are correct. And the others did hold those dolls and treat them as gods of sorts. And there are the different tribes. Even in this season, you see the different tribe briefly. But to what that is, I don't know. And I don't think that they call it speaking Lakota. I think it might be Sioux. I don't know. We're not claiming to be experts in Native American.
No, it's Lakota. It's Lakota.
Yeah, I don't know.
The Sioux is just is one of the Lakota. But again, I have to do more research. But I'm not sure about the costumes. I don't know that the costumes are incorrect, to be honest with you. I can't exactly tell you. Maybe Pretty Dark knows. But in terms of the makeup, like here, I've got a picture here. This is actually a modern use of face paint.
You have to figure of Zahn McClaren, a full Native American citizen, like in all the rest of these actors that they hired for this season to play them, they totally embrace this. So, I mean, I just think that if they really like skewed the whole representation of the Lakota, that they wouldn't have allowed it, because they have real Native Americans. This isn't them hiring out white people or anything like that. So, I mean, if you're going to take issue with it, then I take issue with the real Native Americans that gladly and played it with honor.
Well,
I mean, I'm going to trust them.
Well, I saw an interview with the First Nations actors, and of course they come from a variety of nations. They're not just Lakota. And, I'm a white woman talking about this, so I'm coming from my own personal, information. I don't know a lot about it. My father is an anthropologist. He's a master's in anthropology in Aboriginal studies. But again, that's about Canadian Aboriginals, not so I don't know this region at all. So all I can say is that I would hope that the showrunners and the designers would take care with it in doing this. Like I said, it's 2018 and would have done a lot of research. I did read that the costume designer regarding Shogun World, and I'm assuming they would have done something similar with Ghost Nation, and actually she lived in Japan. She said that the Japanese actors actually told her, like, they say, this is how you wrap kimono. This is how you wear kimono. And they, now she did take some liberties, like for instance, with Mitsubishi, whatever his name is. What's his name again? She added some leather to his costume, for instance, his kimono, just because she wanted to tie him to Hector, right? So she used the leather on his kimono to tie him to Hector's leather jacket that he wears. So the actor said he really liked that. He thought it was really cool. But in terms of how they wore the costume, how they dressed, the actors actually said, this is how you do it. So they actually helped them. And I think, obviously First Nations don't dress like this nowadays, but Japanese don't dress like that either. So in terms of, I would hope that they would have taken that care. And
I watched that. I don't know. I wasn't claiming they were Lakota either. I just know that Zahn McClaren is Native American. I know that the other actors, that they have a group of actors that they stick together. I watched the behind the scenes and they were very happy with their representation. So I'm taking their word for it. I don't know anything about it myself. I watched a few lectures. I found them to be beautiful. I would like to do more research, but I just would have to figure that these actors that are Native Americans, they're not Spanish, like you would see back in the early 90s. A lot of Mexican American actors would play Indians and all this. And that's bullshit. But this was not the case. So I'm just going to go ahead and say it was probably handled decently.
Okay, so I see what she's saying here. So Pretty Dark's saying that he is saying I'm Native and have a lot of exposure to both Lakota, Dakota, and Anishinaabe. So I think what they're saying is it's not the showrunners, it's the park. The people who run the park wouldn't have taken a lot of care. That does make sense, actually, right? What they're saying is the people like Delos Corporation running the park would not necessarily have had everything be completely authentic, which is true,
no,
right?
yeah. That's
Yeah,
very
no,
true.
that's
They bring
that's
that
a good
up with
point.
the Japanese culture.
That's true, and it's true with the Japanese costumes. Like she said that she goes, "This isn't, you know." I think I mentioned this to you earlier. She was saying, normally, a proper Japanese kimono, which is called a furisode, would have taken months to make, whereas they only had 2 to 3 weeks to make it. And she said, we didn't use the types of fabrics that they would have used for kimono. We used modern types of fabrics to make the kimono. So because the idea is that it's a park, it's a theme park. So it's like if you go to, well, we have Canada's Wonderland. I don't know what you guys have. Marineland or any of those types of places.
Whatever it is
Walt
better
Disney
than what Canada
World.
has. That's all I'm saying.
Walt Disney World. I mean, but this is pretty, like, they're trying to put you in the world. They're trying to, and it is for like a much, you know, it's for a very wealthy park goer. But I mean, I think we have made this decision that the people who go to the park are probably themselves pretty maybe racist or elitist or what have you.
Yeah, of course within the narrative they're framed.
Yeah.
Within the narrative they are framed as savages.
Yeah.
And that's because they want the Western people that are going there, which we see are primarily Caucasian Westerners, to feel better about shooting up Indians if they're framed as savages. So yes, that's. But I mean, I think that's meta and that works. That speaks to ignorance. That shines a light on ignorance. So that I think that's really well done.
Yeah. So Pretty Dark says, I'm Native and happy with the representation. I think you're misunderstanding my criticism. Yeah. So sorry. I think we clarified that. Yeah. I think that's a good point. And it's the same with, like, we didn't have much time there. Raj World, or the Raj, you know, it's the same thing. Like, you're going to go to a park in the future and shoot some animals, which, I mean, a lot of people, even this day and age, think big game hunting is just like barbaric. So you're going to go, but I mean, of course, they're hosts. I don't know what you call an animal host. Is it still a host?
Yeah, well, it's a host form of animal. The animals in which they're hunting are extinct.
They're extinct. So this is, and where do we learn that, by the way? Where do we learn that the animals are extinct?
I learned it off of an interview that they gave.
They had to do an interview to explain that.
Yeah. Well, it's an interest. I think that's.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, that's fine. It's that I always take note of what I see in the park. Everything I see in the park, I think, is that there because it's something they can't do anymore.
Yeah, like, in the narrative, they have talked about how they've eradicated disease. Because, you know, one of the things
more
sort of
people
funny,
are living for longer. It's overpopulated and urbanization is happening within habitats. So, animals are dying.
Although it could be like, you know, Jurassic Park, where they could just, you know, make stuff out of DNA or something. Because, like,
it always works well.
Have you heard have you heard they're talking about doing a woolly mammoth though?
No.
They are. They're planning on taking the DNA of a woolly mammoth and growing it in vitro.
Well, I hope that I'm not around for, I don't know. I mean, how many more indications do we need that that's not going to end well? But whatever. Good luck.
Well, before I wrap up, Justin, I was going to tell you one more thing. I found this other YouTube channel. It's really fascinating. It's on, it's BBC. I don't know if it's like BBC Science or something, but they do these like 6-minute videos, or it's all about science. Very cool. So I saw one that I thought you'd really like. I'm going to send you the link if I can find it. It's basically, can you upload your brain to the cloud? And I thought it was really, really fascinating. Because the way it was very different, sort of, I think, than the way Lisa Joy and Jonathan Nolan would look at it. It's super complicated. So, and I think that might answer some questions regarding, you know, how we are. I mean, we are, you know, biological. We are, you know, made of atoms and DNA and all that kind of thing. But like the way that the guy explained it, it is super complicated. Like, at this point, this isn't going to be happening anytime soon.
Well, that's one of those interesting conversations where it's going to, a lot of it is going to hinge on whether you are secular, are you approaching it in a secular manner, if you're approaching it in a religious manner. Obviously, a religious manner is never going to believe that's going to be them. There's a lot of argument for that if our brains are essentially sending electrons and all that out, and neurons, you know, like, it's electricity anyways, why wouldn't it be? That's an interesting conversation. It's just like, I think that the replication of your memories is just a clone, in my opinion, and that has nothing to do with like spiritual. I see it as just It's not
And
me
then
still.
there's been some science behind the idea that your mind might be even in your gut. I don't know if you've heard that. The mind, the brain gut connection. There's this whole idea, like now scientists are thinking that our gut might be responsible for a lot of what goes on in our bodies. It might have more to do with things than just our brain, you know. So
So
it could
that
be.
gut feeling has a whole new meaning to
Yeah,
it.
it has a whole new meaning. But anyways, it's really fascinating because he was talking about basically you would have to slice the brain in thin slices and then upload them separately and then kind of piece it all back together. And it would just be this crazy like experiment. And then but then what I thought was the most fascinating part about it, he said, okay, so even if you could do it, then you're going to have the like if you want anyone watches Dark Mirror, that's a really good they talk about the ethics of science. Then he says, and you're dealing with all of these ethical applications. Like for instance, you know, the forge is a hugely unethical, you know, the fact that these people have taken people's proprietary rights and because you signed off a waiver when you enter the park, you've lost all of these rights basically when you've entered the park, and they can just take whatever they want of you, your DNA, your you know your soul, what have you, and just own it, and then you know sell it or whatever they want to do with it. So yeah, he talks about like what if you're trapped in this sort of virtual world and you can't get out? Like you know you were talking about the Valley Beyond, which I don't know if anybody on here watched Caprica. Did you ever watch Caprica? They did a
I'm
really good,
familiar with it.
they did sort of a virtual heaven on Caprica where basically everybody would be uploaded to this virtual heaven, which is kind of like the Valley Beyond. And even The Hundred, the TV show The Hundred, did it to a lesser extent. And it was just like, it really, it's like, this is, you know, there was a situation on The Hundred where there was going to be like an Armageddon. So, okay, what we'll do is we're going to upload everybody to this virtual reality. And so you'll survive, your body will survive, but you'll live in this virtual reality. But then you say it could end up being like a hell, you know, in the end. It wouldn't be like
Yeah,
a
I
heaven.
have a
You're
video that
trapped.
even though I said I was Westworld burnt out, well, I'm going to be doing some podcasts with Axel Foley from Westworld Theorycast and
Yeah.
a few other people, but I will be doing my next video that I will be doing will be specifically talking about that, the way in which the Forge and Valley Beyond is portrayed, and you know, like kind of looking into the simulation aspect and looking into like kind of the meta commentary on like that is kind of like your generic most a lot of people's probably generic idea of what heaven would be at like a first glance, but it could quickly turn into hell. I got this book and started reading it called Quantum Glory, the science
Okay.
of heaven invading Earth, and it's about quantum physics and mechanics, about the immaterial world and the material world merging, and it kind of deals with this. It's very interesting, and like I said, that's why Westworld's good, because it got me to read books like this.
That's awesome.
I mean, I'm never like, hey, I want to learn about quantum physics. No,
Yeah.
no, I'll watch Ant-Man. But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's looking at things. What is in existence in a world that isn't essentially tangible. Like you can't reach out and grab it. You know, it's not materialistic. So it's very interesting. Westworld is always posing questions. No lack of that. I think you run into issues when they start answering too many, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, I just want to thank Pretty Dark actually, because they kind of added a lot here, and I you know I'm sorry, like I said, I don't have a lot of knowledge on this, so I really appreciate you participating. They just said Sue is an umbrella term over Dakota, Lakota, Nakota. I think the park makers being clumsy with their costuming is about cultural appropriation. The story. I'm Native and had a lot of exposure to Lakota, Dakota, and Anash. Why can't I say that? Sorry. I'm from the region where those tribes would interact and intersect, and I'm Native and happy with the representation. So, thank you
that's awesome. See, and that's
so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for contributing to this. Because
and if they would, I would just like to ask if they would like to make sure that subscribe, yes, but to contact me through my channel, because
absolutely,
if you really have a lot of insight into this and would like to, because I love the meta aspect that you're bringing up. And again, I'm sorry if I jumped the gun, but people usually just attack. So I think it's kind of like our bad on that. But yeah, I would love if anybody has, especially since you truly are you know it's your culture. I would love an insight into that if that's something you'd like to invest.
Sorry, they say Anishinaabe.
Stop trying to say it. Stop trying to say it.
You know what? It's so terrible. Like, you should see me. Like, I'll get like for instance, when I did my what do you call it? Black Panther video, when, you know, there's all these African terms in it, right? Because like all the different cultures that they based upon, and again, the designer there, she's African American, so they, you know, they borrowed from a lot of different African cultures in Africa, and so I'd have to say these different words, and then in the end, I got the actor's name wrong. Like, I got everything. No one corrected me on any of the words I said, but I got the actor's. I said Nyong instead of Nyongo. And so that was so funny. But yeah, so I'm terrible with pronunciation. Like, one time I tried to say Caucasus or Caucasian. It wasn't Caucasian. It was Caucasus or Caucasus or something. I don't know. And I got like, so many people were furious with me. And I'm like, sorry, like, I don't know.
Well, so anyways, that's YouTube's comments section. It's just where the warriors, the grammar, the punctuation warriors.
Yeah, I'm learning along with you guys, honestly. Okay, Justin, just before we go though, did you want to just, we'll just quickly state about this. We're trying to help this family that had a tragedy happen to them. And I've put a GoFundMe link in the comments, and basically they're part of the YouTube Game of Thrones community. They're not a creator, but they're someone who's been a real supporter of other YouTubes. Do you want to just quickly mention that?
Yeah, this is an effort that's being headed up by Smokescreen and History of Westeros, Val from Because Geek, just people from the community that I felt that I personally had no connection with this gentleman that sadly passed. This is totally their thing that they're doing, which is very, very I love how they are just showing support for somebody in the community that unfortunately is no longer with us and their family, and how they're able to bind together the people from the fandom and to do something to help this family. Again, like I said, this is not, I don't want to frame this as my personal cause. You know, I of course support it, but it's just it's them. I just want to make sure that if you guys, a lot of people are familiar with their channels, they're streaming right now. You can go to the GoFundMe link in Heidi's information right now and donate. I donated. It's for a good cause, and unfortunately, this family could definitely use the help. And it's just it's a nice thing to do, and it's a nice thing for us to come together and do more than just talk about television.
Oh, and Pretty Dark, she's a costumer, actually. She's with a group called Regalia Atelier. So if Pretty Dark, if you're on Twitter, I'm going to find you, okay? She says Caucasus. Yeah, I think I finally got it after I got raked. But like the Game of Thrones names, oh my God, that's the funniest. In fact, I even had on Twitter for ages, I had that I'm famous for getting Game of Thrones names wrong. So anyway, Justin, really interesting show today. Like, we touched on so many things.
It's almost like a YouTube confidential, but I'm always happy to come on, and thank you so much.
It was like a YouTube confidential.
Channel, do so. Where we just talk. Like a YouTube confidential, the show I do where I speak about like the platform and the issues we deal with, and the things that we try to walk that very thin line of being negative and overselling certain things, or just crapping on and so forth. Putting out content that is well received.
So before we go, tell me. I know you mentioned this at the beginning, but tell us, everybody, what you have coming up.
So on Tuesday, I have a Game of Thrones stream with Robert from In Deep Geek on my channel at 5 Eastern. That will be about the difference between the warrior classes in Game of Thrones, specifically the Northern Lords versus but opposed to the Southern Knights, in the way in which the feudalistic hierarchy works. And then I have a new project that I'm working on, and it's called The Evolution of the Trailer, which is about the history of how film it has not only gone through so many changes, but the actual movie trailer has evolved so much, and arguably even more than film as a medium. And I'll be taking a look at A Star Is Born, since there is now the 4th adaptation of that film.
I can't wait to see that. That sounds great. And no, can I ask you quickly, what was your first impression of that Bradley Cooper movie?
I'm a huge I watched, there's a really good channel called 3030 where I watched an interview with him about a year ago, and I have a lot of respect for Bradley Cooper because of it. He is very hands-on. He when he's an executive producer on films, he doesn't do it as a vanity title. He sits in the editing bay. He learns how to edit. He learns the process. He's very dedicated. He is very, very talented and passionate. And I'm a sucker for music. I have it tattooed on me. I like Lady Gaga. I really like the way she's looking in this film in particular, and I think it's going to be interesting to see since they're doing country. But I thought it's beautiful. I thought it was powerful. I thought it hit a lot of, I'll talk about it in the actual video, but it hit a lot of emotional beats without a lot of exposition, really no exposition. You have your old school trailers are like a guy that's down on his luck and a gal that's looking to make it in the movie business. You know what I mean? Like, you're just spelling it out for you. And that's kind of what this series of videos will be about. It's best to look at when you can have multiple adaptations of a story, and this one is very relevant because this is the fourth. You have all the way from 1937 to 1957 to the 1970s with Chris Christopherson and Barbara Streisand, and now you have Bradley Cooper and Lady Gaga. I forget her name, Stephanie something. But
but it hits a different generation each time. Like,
and they rewrote it. It's just the framework of the story.
Yeah. And I was really, I was like, but from the trailer, Bradley Cooper's a really amazing performer, singer.
And they did that at Coachella. They sold separate
they did it live.
Yeah, they sold separate tickets for $10. People knew they were watching a part of a production because she was headlining that, and they felt like he had there's a good Ellen interview where he talks about how he overestimated how good of a singer he was and how the extensive vocal training he's I think a lot of people could write him off for like movies like The Hangover, which was funny and great, but he's a very talented and dedicated and just a genuine person from what I can tell. These DP 3030 is what this channel is called, and you get 2-hour interviews with actors. It's usually around award season, and it's just like a very casual.
I've been watching. I think it's called Golden Derby, and I'm like, for instance, there was an interview with Sophie Turner on there recently. And the only thing is, it was hard to watch because the sound wasn't very good. But they do these really low tech interviews by Skype and stuff like that. And I'll be watching these videos, and no one will be watching them. They'll have had like 10 views, and it's with huge big name stars. And so I started following them. They only have maybe, I don't know, 1,000 followers, but they have a huge online presence. They do all the Oscar picks and the Emmy picks and stuff like that. That's what their main thing is. But then they'll do all these YouTube interviews with big name stars. And then so they'll have Game of Thrones, and they'll have like all these big movies coming out. And they do a lot of costume designers too. So I'll oftentimes watch the ones with like, for instance, there's a really great interview with Michelle Clapton that's on YouTube, and it's only got 400 views, and it's this amazing interview, but no one's watched it. I don't know if it's just no one's caught on to it, but it's funny how that is sometimes.
Yeah, it's the stage that allows everybody on at YouTube, but it's the hardest one to stay on. So, it is what it is. Quality does not mean subscribers. Trust me.
No, exactly. Well, and also, like, I think even though people are big Game of Thrones fans, they may not know who Michelle Clapton is. They may just not know who she is, even though she's won 3 Emmys for it.
It's Eric Clapton's sister, right? No,
yeah. Oh, yeah, that's it.
Well, I really appreciate you having me on.
I'm so happy you came on, and we've been wanting to do it for a while. And so I have a Game of Thrones video coming out tomorrow. It's going to be on, I think it's tomorrow. It's going to be on Ned Stark and Jon Snow. So it's going to be kind of paralleling the two. So I'm really looking forward to it. I've been looking at lots of cool pictures. And so actually, and I found like I found some, I don't know if you ever are looking for pictures, guys. There's a channel, or sorry, what do you call it? A website called Section of Randomness. So Justin, sorry, you as well. He puts all these high resolution photos up. I don't know where they get them from. I'm thinking maybe they're in production or something, but he's got all these really, really great Game of Thrones pictures. So I'm going to have lots of those on there. So you guys might see some pictures that you haven't. You might see some pictures. Like I found some pictures the other day and I'm like, I've never even seen these Game of Thrones pictures before. So it's going to be packed full of pictures. I think I've got something like 150 pictures, images, and looking at some close-ups of their costumes, talking a little bit about armor, talking a little bit about British medieval costuming. So that's what I've got coming up. So I want to thank everyone who was here. And I think what happened was Aaron was our moderator, but he had a power failure and it looks like we lost him and he never came back. So I'm sorry, Aaron, you weren't here. But if you're back on the replay, you were missed. And so thanks for everybody who came. Thanks for Pretty Dark for telling us all about that. That was really informative. We really appreciated it. And I want to thank you for coming on here as well. Justin Thomas.
Thank you.
Okay. So everyone have a great evening. Enjoy your weekend. Hopefully it's not too hot where you are. And I will be back next weekend, but I'll be back the week after. But in the meantime, I'll have a video. So thanks so much, guys. Bye.
Thank you.